Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another RGV Aerial Starbase Weekly live stream. My name is Zach Golden, and as always, we have a very special show for all of you today. In particular, we are running a really awesome fundraiser today, which we will explain more about here in a few minutes. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce all of our other guests for today. We have Mauser with us. Mauser, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and like you said, it's a great week. We got a lot of changes in this cool episode, so thanks for having me.
Of course. And do you want to go by Mauser or Craig?
Everyone knows me as Mauser, so I'll just stick with that for now.
That's fine. That's fine. Awesome. Well, we also have Nate with us. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Oh yeah, glad to be here. Such a cool stream this week with why we're streaming, and then of course all the changes that's happened down at Boca this week.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton to talk about. And we also have Todd with us. Todd, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is definitely going to be an exciting one. We got unique views, great changes, and a great cause. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. Definitely going to come in handy. We got some interesting topics that we got to cover at Massie's, which is going to be really helpful for us. So thank you for joining us. And of course, we have Astro Joe, who's going to be handling all of the donations and questions. And Astro Joe, do you also want to introduce this week's fundraiser?
Indeed, I do. Thank you, Zach. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Starbase friends around the world. A very special episode, number 101 today, benefiting St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. This is a cause very near and dear to our hearts, as it should for all of us, because no child should die in the dawn of life, you know. And at St. Jude's, families never receive a bill. Treatments developed at St. Jude have helped push the overall childhood cancer survival rate from 20% more to more than 80% since they opened it more than 60 years ago. Just a small donation of $10 can help buy a new toy. $50 donations can help provide a share of platelet transfusion. $100 donations can help provide a red wagon, the preferred mode of travel for the youngest patients. $250 donations can help provide a share of chemotherapy, and just as little as $5 will support current and future needs of St. Jude. Since then, since we started, we've had several donations. One from even last night from Ground Truth, $20. Rocket, before the stream started, $20. Methane Man, $50 donations this morning. And Anonymous just came in with 5. We've totaled up to 115 so far. And I do have a promise from Jared Isaacman to match all of our funds that we raised today. And as a final note, I just want to let you all know that your super chats will not be taking a cut from YouTube. This is 100% donated to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Thank you all. Look forward to the show.
Yeah, awesome. And the reason we mentioned that is because, a lot of people tend to donate on PayPal for the reason of, kind of getting past the, cut that YouTube likes to take. So that's messages, but basically for those people, if you want to have your donations counted towards the total on the screen, then the only way to do that is through YouTube. So yeah, we just want to let you all know that, it'll be different this week as far as not having YouTube take that cut, and everything will go 100% to St. Jude's. So awesome. Thank you, Astro Joe. And we'll continue to update you all on our progress throughout the stream. And shout out to Jared Isaacman for the generosity with matching the donations from today's stream. We're hoping to maybe have either Jared or one of the other astronauts with us today, but we were unable to make that happen this time. So hopefully next time around we'll be able to do that. But in the meantime, we appreciate their support, and we'll continue with the show. All right, everybody. This is quickly becoming my favorite thing to talk about lately, which is the Massie's test site, where we have a lot of new updates happening out here pretty much every single week. There's a ton of groundwork happening out here. This is actually, SpaceX's technically main testing site right now, in my opinion. All of the so far ship cryo testing, booster cryo testing, and structural testing for both the ship and booster, and also structural verification testing for all their new modifications to the vehicles all happen out here. So this is quickly becoming more and more important site out here. And we actually did have some updates this week from Kathy Letters. Hopefully I'm saying her name right. Who is the... Oh man, what's her job title? I know she's the manager of... I think she's manager of operations at Starbase. I could be wrong on that. Maybe y'all can help me out. But yeah, she gave a private talk in Brownsville this week. It was like invitation only. And she spoke on a lot of things related to IFT2, but also to current operations at Starbase. And, she kind of mentioned the purpose of doing all this testing at Massie's, and it essentially revolves around, reducing the amount of beach closures that happen as a result of like cryo testing, static fires, all of that stuff. So this is their way around, using so many hours of road closures and beach closures, and kind of helping to keep those areas open to the public. And ideally, I think it'll come down to only having to close the road for booster static fires and launches. And we'll kind of get into that more here. And I mean, we might as well just start there since it's at the back of the site. We have been kind of watching a lot of this land development that's been happening back here to kind of figure out what's going on there. And I know y'all know that I've been suggesting for several months now that we should probably expect to see some sort of static fire test stand back here. And I think that we finally have a lot more information in that regard. And, first of all, I think I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we got to mention something that's also relevant to this. So earlier this week, and let me see if I can get a good picture of it. test stand B, or test stand A, so this one right here at the launch site, this test stand was actually demolished this week. So they haven't actually used this one in quite a while. I think maybe Ship 26 was the last one to use this during like a cryo test before they started doing them at Massie's. So that was the last time we saw them use this. Initially, it kind of looked like they were going to make the same modifications on this test stand that they did with test stand A, but they ended up not doing that. And this week, they actually ended up scrapping this test stand. So now there's only one static fire test stand at the launch site. And we think there's a possibility that they may have plans of getting rid of that one as well. And so I guess we'll kind of step into why we believe this. Essentially it comes down to the work that we've seen happening out here. And, in previous weeks, I did mention that we have the new kettle boilers, these basically subcoolers or heat exchangers that are used primarily during engine testing. So I know a lot of folks have said, well, these can also be used to better simulate flight-like conditions for cryo testing and get the cryo temps of the fluids down closer to what they would be during launch conditions. But in my opinion, against that argument, during these tests, they're using liquid nitrogen for cryo testing. And liquid nitrogen is far colder than both liquid oxygen and liquid methane. So technically, you can't really get colder than that in this situation because you're not using these to heat exchange liquid nitrogen with liquid nitrogen. So there's no reason to get any colder than what they're already doing unless they started to use liquid oxygen or methane, which would suggest something other than just cryo testing. So these are not used in cryo tests, period. So in my opinion, that means that they have to be using this for liquid oxygen and the other one for liquid methane. And in that regard, we mentioned, I'll step through things actually. So there's also these high pressure gas cylinders down here, which are very similar to the ones that we've seen on the roof of the fluids bunker at the launch site. And at the launch site, these are used for storing high pressure nitrogen, helium, oxygen, and methane, and those are all used in engine startup. So during cryo tests, not really a whole lot of use for those because you're not really like loading the COPVs for any reason. And that's what these are used for, is loading COPVs. So another sign of impending engine testing happening here. And finally, before we move over to this location over here, we have this this pad over here that I mentioned last week, which now y'all can see the studs coming out of the concrete in a circular pattern, which basically is preparing this for vertical storage tanks to be placed here. And this week, I mentioned last week that we were going to expect the two vertical tanks that were previously at the Sanchez site got moved to Pad 39A. They actually got moved to the Pad 39A launch complex, and then got moved to the Roberts Road facility, and now they are currently on their way out here. So I'm going to quickly just show, and this is going to hint at some other things that we're going to be talking about, but I'm going to show a little picture of those on the as they're being loaded onto the barge, so y'all can see. And this is some footage actually showing this tower section being loaded onto the barge, and y'all can see how heavy that thing is, shifting the whole thing. But the point of this is to show what's going on here with those two vertical storage tanks. So these are basically the exact same size as what we're expecting to, the same size as the pattern that we're seeing on those concrete pads. And when these first arrived out here, we never really had any confirmation of what their purpose was, but our assumption had always been that they were part of some sort of methane system. So we kind of thought that SpaceX was going to be using them to purify natural gas into like purified methane. And that was kind of what we thought their initial purpose was for. And that ended up not happening. They shipped them over to KSC and didn't end up using them. But overall, we've always assumed that their purpose was related to methane. And so, given that, and like I said, we could still be wrong, but, considering all the other things I said a few minutes ago, these are going to be placed right here on this pad, and they will be right next to these two kettle boilers. And I don't know if these are permanently in position right here, but it appears they are. I'm guessing these are high pressure methane storage tanks right here, which means there'll also probably be some vaporizers nearby that will convert the liquid methane into gaseous methane to fill these. So yeah, lots of signs of engine testing happening here. Finally, we have this area over here, which I'll let Todd kind of speak on this because he's looked into this a lot more than I have. But we did mention that they were doing some sort of like a slurry wall over here. And Todd, do you think you can explain that a little bit better for us? And I have those videos that you sent to me so that we can use those as references as well.
Yeah, no problem. So what caught me first was over to the left, there is what's called the slurry wall grab. It's just to the left of the yellow crane. That is used for pretty much one thing and one thing only, is for making slurry walls. Slurry walls are a watertight form of foundation used in construction for places that are going to stay dry. Let's see, right there where you were just at. Yep, there's the grab. That's used in conjunction with a duty crawler type crane or duty cycle crane. It's a lower robust crane made for, just dropping that down into the hole. Just to your right, where you see the yellow guys in the yellow working, right there, that is where they're starting to put the guides in. So there's some guides in there that the slurry wall will go down. The grab is not made for making trenches. Yeah, there you go. That's a good view of it. You can see right there. The grab is not made for making trenches. What it will do is it'll go straight down and make a rectangular hole straight down. They will backfill it with bentonite to hold the walls up. They will either add rebarb and concrete, or they will let the slurry wall dry. I suspect we'll see rebarb and concrete because they're going to need the structural rigidity for keeping the water out from the river and the low water table.
I have a good example of that for you. Hold on,
okay. I'll let you show that.
Bring this up here. So this is kind of what it looks like. This is like a little diagram right here that's showing. I'm going to full screen this. So this is the grabber, right? On the diagram right here.
Correct. Yep, that's the grab.
And yeah, this is in the process of digging out that hole, and this is the actual hole essentially on the right here, followed by what they're doing in this one is dropping that rebar in there. And I think I have a better video. I think this is it.
Yeah, I think that was the one.
Yeah, so this kind of shows that process a little bit better. Right, and so you're saying basically, this is for creating underground walls, essentially, right?
Correct. What they'll probably do afterwards, and every other thing I've been able to look up and stuff I've seen in the past, is they will excavate the area in between the walls. That area is not meant for anything other than staying dry. So whatever they excavate, they're going to keep that area open. This is not used for just making a foundation. They would use piles or just the densification that they've been doing with the bentonite they're trying to shore up the ground and make it stronger. This is used so that they will have a usable space in the ground after that. When I first saw the use of slurry walls on a documentary a long time ago, was a documentary on the World Trade Center, the original. They made a slurry wall to keep out the Hudson River. Yep, there you go. After the towers fell, That was the only piece that had anything structural rigidity left. It was pretty much not damaged. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it kept the Hudson River out of the city, and it would have done a lot more damage had one of those let go and the river was able to come in. So they are very strong. It's not just a wall on the ground. It's very, very strong wall that's being put in. And then the area like this was excavated in between, and then it's a usable area. What they're
Like
going to use it for is still up in the air.
kind of like a bathtub, right?
Reverse. The bathtub, more like a boat in the water around it. The inside will be dry. The outside will be wet still.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Bathtubs are empty like 99% of the time, so that's why I said that.
Yeah, exactly. So I was definitely non-static fire team for the longest time, but when I saw that grab over there, I don't know. I'm not saying for sure what they're going to do, but man, there's not many reasons that they're going to want to keep an area dry for a long amount of time. Everything else, they've been just fine with, burying what they need to bury to make something so they can build on the piles, the concrete, whatever, and then they fill it back in. They don't need that space. They haven't used other than trenches for wiring and conduit. They've obviously got that figured out, how to do in the ground. But I just can't think of anything that needs to stay dry for a long period of time that also needs a lot of strength. And that's definitely what these walls are going to do. I'm like really interested to see where we see those guides going, because that'll be the tell of what the shape is going to be, and to see what comes of this, because this is just, yeah, this is big.
Yeah, I think you know, people in the chat over the last few months have rightly, or I don't know if I'll say rightly, but have been, disagreeing with the possibility of engine testing happening here. But I think the signs are really starting to add up, and if this is exactly what it looks like it is, then this is a wall for a flame trench. So we do need to see. Obviously a secondary wall, and I'm not sure where that one's going to be located. So they did do and this is different. I forget what this one's called over here. With the other mixer that they used, what do they call it? That was what we discussed last week.
I'm running blank too.
Yeah, wow.
Deep soil mixing is what it's called. Yeah, and that's what we talked about last week, what they were doing in that location. But so two different things that are happening here, and I don't know if this is like the initial steps, like before you throw this in here. Like it seems like two different things, but I would imagine that they need two separate walls, right? And we have formwork over here, a lot of it actually, so that's kind of suggests that this thing is going to be relatively long. And we can already see where they've marked out so far. I'm guessing it'll just continue even further, or
it'll be four walls for sure. They're
Right.
going to need to keep the water out from all sides. So we should see a tub or something that's four sides and keep the water out. Because if not, it'll just come in from the other direction. Especially with how Massie's is surrounded with water, they're going to need protection from all sides to keep the water out.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And
yeah, with the soil densification to the right of it, I'm just like, I try to like wonder, okay, which direction are they going? Because I can't see them doing that and then digging it back out. That's the slurry wall is what helps keep that, the shape. I mean, maybe it's just so loose that they need to keep that densified so that it doesn't cave in, but they've got this technique, pretty well down. They do it in the CFA drilling. They know how to keep the holes from collapsing with the slurry. So I'm not sure with what they're doing over there. And then with the rest of the stuff they got going on, I'm still trying to, in my mind, figure out which way this would go. Cause it's got to be, it's still going to be big. It's not like it's just going to be one small hole. I'm just trying to figure out which direction they're going in my head. And that I'm having a hard time doing, but that's why I can't wait to see where these guide walls end up at and the directions of them and some flags down the line.
yeah, it looks like a rebar cage down here that's rectangular shaped. And then more piles of rebar right here, so they may be dropping those in after.
Yeah, Depending on how deep, and they can go deep.
Or engine testing is already happening at Massey's, is what she said. Matter of fact, I think I have the direct quote somewhere.
Well, it wasn't directly quoted. They didn't put it in quotes, but yeah, so we're not quite sure exactly how she worded that and if it was quoted properly, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just going to. I have a bunch of stuff prepared for today, but I did not bring that up, so I'm just going to look for that on my own Twitter really quick. Okay, so yeah, it says the. I'm just going to read it word for word here. So Starbase itself is a hotbed of construction and activities these days, she said, with a second orbital launch pad on tap, as well as a 1 million square foot factory, additional employee housing, and office space all coming online. The second pad is necessary for SpaceX's goals of faster launch cadence, while much of the engine testing is now taking place at SpaceX's Massey's test site on a former gun range known as Starbase. So that right there was a little bit confusing because it makes it sound like it's already happening there, and I think it was actually intended to be more of like a forward-looking statement, like it will end up happening here. Yeah, that's kind of what I got out of it. And again, it's not like a direct quote, but it might as well be because, I mean, like I said, the signs are really just starting to present themselves.
I know they still have a ton of regulations and how to deal with the Mexico side and the water passageway, but I'm definitely leaning more towards looks like static fires or some sort of fire and diversion system here. There's a lot to do and a lot to get past before it's like 100% in my mind, but this is a huge step.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The thing that threw me off a little bit is the placement of these the kettle boilers. You know, because this is kind of in the way of where I would have expected the trench to go. So like instead of having it, you know, going towards the Mexico side, I would expect it to go this way, long ways against across the back of the property, so that they're firing in that direction or in this direction. Yeah, I mean, right now the layout is going to be very interesting because in this direction there's not as much space. Yeah, this is going to be easily the biggest thing that we got to keep our eyes out on over the next few months, I would say. Well, second biggest, since we have another launch tower to worry about as well too. So yeah, anyways, that's really exciting news, and thank you, Todd, for filling us in on that. I guess maybe I know there's like probably questions related to this, so let's go ahead, you know, and get to those early, I guess, before we go ahead and move on. So Astro Joe, do you want to, I guess, take care of those and donations? We're getting pretty far in our goal right now as well. So
Definitely, yeah. 2,808 so far. I've got a lot of people to thank here, starting with Credence, $20 donation, Demars, 20 Canadian dollars, Ryan, $20, Jim Cabot, 5, anonymous from 200 from an anonymous donator, 50 from another anonymous donator, Andrew Klatt, $50, Dan Thiessen, $100, another 20 from another anonymous. Losing track here, my goodness. All right. Yeah, sorry about that. Losing track. So many here. Ryan Pesek, $50. Duan G, $50. Cranky Old Elf, $20. Jake Winlow, $50. Adam Baker, $20. Anonymous 5. Gene, $500. I am Groot, $20. Another 100 from another anonymous. Baz Top, 20 pounds. Valerie Jones, $50. 55 Chevy Guy Steve, $500. Thank you, sir.
wow.
20 from another anonymous. Phil Kid, $500. Thank you, sir. 20 from another anonymous. 100 from another anonymous. Our very own Rocket Prophet, $50. Wayne Metcalf, 5 pounds. Nate Z, our very own, $20. My lovely wife, $20. And a $25 PayPal from Kenneth Coates. Yazada, $20. Ulrich Mueller, €20. Jason S, $5. Gigi, $20. Norma Attilano, our very own RGV, $20. And let's see, we got Zach over here, $20. Dave with $100. Dave Avery, thank you, sir. David Pothier, $20. Moon to Mars, $20. Thank you all so much for your support. You are amazing. We're at 2,968 towards our goal. We're kicking butt. Thank you all so much. Now, got some questions.
Really quick, before you get to the questions, I do see some people in the chat mentioning that they were having like a lag or dropout. I guess I just want to check with everybody in the chat if it's coming through all right for you all, and if not, we will take a look at that. So just let me know, I guess, if you guys are all hearing us pretty well.
And some lag there,
a little bit of delay. Yeah, so I guess while they're doing that, then go ahead and let's get to the questions.
All right. Jacob S. asks, would they need an environmental approval for this due to the flame trench and water being used?
Yeah. So I do imagine there's probably some sort of environmental approval involved in this, which will be interesting. Man, I mean, I hate to say it, but normal SpaceX fashion is to complete construction first and then get that approval later. But with that said, it's entirely possible that they're already in that process and we just aren't aware of that. So typically we don't really find out about that stuff until after they get the approval. I think sometimes once they do submit it, we end up finding out about it too. But yeah, that'll be one of those things that we have to wait for. And what was the second part of that question? Oh, water. Yeah, the water is going to be an interesting thing. So, I mean, right now they've already have a water treatment facility in the back of the location right here. That's going to be another interesting thing to see if that ends up staying there. But yeah, for obviously, if they do static fire testing, they're going to need some sort of water source. Right now, then I don't know if this is related at all, but they're currently, as you can see, installing a water tank down here. This is a rather small water tank, but not really at the same time because, the static fire tests that we've seen them do with ships are not like long duration tests that you see at Stennis. You know what I mean? They're last for like 2 seconds. So the amount of water that you need for those kind of tests is kind of minimal. And doing that into a flame trench also, in my opinion, probably reduces the amount of water needed as well. But yeah, this will be interesting. I mean, the amount of methane that can be stored in these two containers that are going to be here is relatively small compared to the overall capacity of a ship. So that also suggests that it's not going to be like long duration static fires. But it is also entirely possible that having a flame trench, they may do longer duration static fires than they have already. And I think overall this would be very good for the ships because they on the test stand A and B, they end up firing like very close to the ground, which at this point is semi-realistic, is more realistic than it was in the past. And that's because now they have this hot staging maneuver, which is even closer to I say the ground in air quotes, the top of the hot stage ring. So, testing that close to the ground kind of is good for, simulating that to some degree. But overall, preventing damage to the ship, having a flame trench is really good. Some people would say, why don't they have that for the launch mount? But I think we all know the answer to that. So yeah, overall, I think this is going to be a good thing. Hopefully that answers that question.
Works for me. Forge Gamer asks, if they're moving static fires for ships over here to Massie's, then what will happen to the suborbital tank farm?
Go bye-bye.
Jake or Mauser and Nate, what do you guys think?
I'm still not convinced that ships are going to static fire at Massey's or boosters. I think they'll do some kind of engine testing, but I think ships will still do like a 6-engine static fire, and they'll do that at the suborbital tank farm.
Nate?
They're talking about this second tower like it's imminent. Like we're going to see them start breaking ground and starting to dig. And we haven't seen any approval from the Corps of Engineers for them to use the rest of their property. And so it would have to go somewhere, and that somewhere would be right around the suborbital stuff. And so I kind of, at this point, I used to be, I wasn't really up on the idea of them static firing at Massey's, but I'm kind of coming along to that side.
Yeah. I will hold my opinion on that one until we get to the either Sanchez or the suborbital site, because there's going to be a lot to talk about in that regard. So yeah, that'll be we'll readdress that question again here soon.
All right, final question related here from Jacob S. If they use a flame trench, is it then likely the next launch pad could also have a flame trench?
No. Nope. I think that they are against having a flame trench for the launch mount, and a big part of that is being able to do to easily perform maintenance on the booster, and that requires a flat surface underneath it so they can roll the maintenance stand under there. Obviously, there's a possibility that they can design something else that would allow them to still do that, but I think they're pretty set in their ways right now, and they're not really trying to cave in on that one. And I think they like the way that the current booster bidet system is performing, and that's probably something that they will continue to do. And I mean, more evidence on that is what we saw so far with Pad 39A. They have no intention of installing one of those there, so I think that's another sign of what we should expect overall.
Something that's going on in this picture right here, Zach, that I don't know if you planned on covering or not, but that black crane boom that's in the center, that was the pieces of the crane that was over in Sanchez near the water tank putting piles in.
Right. Yeah. So you can see that they've got some rebar down here, which are likely for rebar cages used for those piles. And I do have some ground pictures, actually. Let me pull those up. So in these ground images, you can see that after this flyover was taken, that crane was actually set up, and it is currently holding a CFA continuous flight auger pile driving, or I don't know if pile driving is the right term for that in this case. But yeah, so that's what this is currently doing. It's a little difficult from these pictures to tell where it's digging, though. I guess if I back out a little bit, this appears to be
it's somewhere in that square where it's located in the image.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it is digging piles. Oops, wrong image. In that area, which I think probably suggests additional cryo tanks. So that was one thing that I mentioned last week, is that this area had been cleared out, and it kind of looked like they were going to have additional cryo tanks here. So I would say that's probably what it's digging, is foundations for large cryo tanks. And on that note, there's a lot more work that they got to do out here. You can see they have all these cryo pipes laid out over here, and a lot more pipe stands that they're going to be using here soon. So a lot of work to integrate all of these things that they're bringing over here, as far as the heat exchangers and the pumps. And on the note of the pumps, they got these larger cryo pumps, which are very similar to what was, or not similar, pretty much identical to the ones used at the Orbital tank farm. So these are actually the sleeves for those. So what they do is they drill, they take an auger and they put a big hole in the ground and then slide a large steel pipe into the ground. And then these go in between, inside of that pipe. Essentially, usually they'll wrap this with insulation and then slide it down into that casing. And then this is basically where the pump drops down into. And the pumps for these are somewhere.
I think
I
they're
think
up to
let me try and get a different angle right here. Yeah, they are up here. So you can see the pumps that are over here wrapped up currently. I think there's more, but I'm not sure where the other ones are. Yeah, but we're basically going to be seeing additional pumps, basically for those heat exchangers is what those are for. So I think they already have pumps down here. These are the pumps that they use currently for cryo testing. I'm gonna have to go back and look, and I can't tell if this is new or if they're dismantling these. It almost looks like they're dismantling these, but I got to go back and check older shots just to be sure. But if that is the case, then they're dismantling these so that they can place new pumps, larger pumps in the ground, in order to be able to use these heat exchangers. What else do we have here, Nate? Or Mauser? Oh,
I'm
okay.
pretty Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm pretty
You
sure
go
that tank to the left, the brand new one, or not the brand new, but the newest one they came in, the oddball size one, looks like that's plumbed in now. I don't know if that was completely plumbed in last time, but I don't know if anyone mentioned, but these views are unique this time around. I believe it was due to the weather, and I'm not sure if it was just the weather, but Mauricio did lower flights on this one. He did, I believe it was around 4,000, 4,500 feet. They came in from the sides on them, so we're getting these unique views that kind of give us more of a side view, and they're very crisp. I'm loving how they turned out, but it shows this right here really well that tank looks like it's plumbed in completely, at least almost completely, if not completely.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm not sure if Mauricio did these from a helicopter or.
No, it was a plane.
Okay, yeah, so that's just flying from the outer perimeter of the site. And I know a lot of you are going to wonder why doesn't he do that every week? But part of doing flyovers this low is that you have to be outside of the TFR in order to do that. And if you want to get above the launch site, then you then have to climb to 10,000 feet. So that is quite the process to go from 4,000 up to 6,000 in a plane like that. Usually he's doing that in between the airport and Starbase. So, basically using the transit time on the way there to get up to altitude instead of doing it while you're at the site. So, I don't know if I doubt that he'll start doing both of them at the same time. But this week, all of the pictures are from this altitude because there was a very low cloud ceiling the whole week. And technically it's still there right now. There's also been a lot of fog and stuff. So, luckily he was able to even get these pictures at all. So that's very awesome. Cool. So the other thing to mention here is the ship. This is Mauser's 24.1 or 2?
0.2.
Okay, 24.2. Okay, we're going to have to skip around here a little bit. So we're going to talk about this and ship 26 at the same time. So this is the I guess Mauser, do you want to explain it?
Sure. So this is a payload test article. It's got a PEZ door in it and then a very strong cap that they pull down on to simulate forces. And it's been undergoing structural testing for, I don't know, a few weeks now, and it seems like it's finally wrapped up. There are some ground photos showing some results. Do you have those handy?
Yeah. Let me grab those really quick. Well, so these are showing it after it's been lifted off. I don't know if we can see the area that we need to see on this.
Oh no, it's below that, I think.
Let
You
me.
can't see the door is a little misaligned, which it's unclear if that's damage or just intentional.
Yeah, but there, essentially, there's a crease on the actual one of the ring welds down below the door. And the reason that is relevant, obviously, is because they were doing structural testing on this, which, they've been has been a thing they've been worrying about for quite a while, is having the payload section be able to be structurally stable, I guess, under expected flight loads. And this is the reason why Ship 24 and Ship 25 had their payload doors welded shut. So this is like pretty crucial in order for them to actually be able to use the payload doors on 28, 29, 30, 31, etc. So, initially, I guess, and when I say we, I'm referring to the ring watchers, actually, who have been kind of keeping track with a lot of this stuff very closely. They were the ones who kind of noticed that crease on the bottom of the below the payload door. And initially, I guess they weren't sure whether or not that was a bad thing. Like, sometimes these tests are done to failure, so they weren't sure if that was a bad thing. But this week we've kind of seen some new additions with Ship 26, and I guess I can just go ahead and skip over to there right now. Give me a second while I pull up some photos of that. So this is Ship 26 in the Rocket Garden. And what did they do with Ship 26 this week, Mauser?
Well, they went to the same spot that the test article creased, and they added a bunch of reinforcements.
Yeah, so you can kind of see
there
them
they
right
go.
here.
Which there's a lot of speculation on this. I don't know what makes the most sense, but it could be that they found that seam was weak, and so they're reinforcing it. But the strange thing is Ship 26 does not have a payload door, so it's in the same boat as 24 and 25 as far as the door goes. The exception is it also does not have the PEZ dispenser inside, and that could be providing some structural integrity that Ship 26 does not have. Therefore, they felt like they needed to reinforce it, but that doesn't really align with that seam buckling either.
Yeah, and this is kind of did it buckle above the weld or on the weld?
I thought it was pretty much right on it, but now
Yeah.
I'm questioning it.
So this is interesting that they're doing this above that weld line, but I think this is just like the initial placement of it. They've kind of tacked it on there, and now they're going to have to go back and actually fully weld this on there. But we kind of refer to these as weld doublers. I think SpaceX refers to them as super stringers, and they're basically common reinforcement that they use pretty much anywhere where that's under supported or needs more support. So this is weird though, because I think most of us are expecting Ship 26 to not fly, right? So I mean, what do you think this means as far as like Ship 26? Does it mean they're are gonna fly it, or is it like something that they're testing out before they do it on other ships?
I am the wrong person to ask about that. I've been on the Ship 26 is going to fly train forever and never jumped off of it. So people keep telling me they're going to scrap it, and they keep adding on to it and improving it and keeping it around. So I still think it's going to fly, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm the
What were
same
you
as
gonna say, Nate?
Mauser. I'm the same as Mauser. They've yet to remove the engines. They keep tinkering with it. When you look at one of their objectives in the first for the first flight, when they talked about flights down the road, it was a naked ship that would burn up on reentry, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons for them to want that data, so I still think 26 will fly. So this may be kind of a both thing. They're testing it out for the future, but also getting 26 ready to go.
Yeah, it is a little curious that, if they saw that seam buckle, I don't think we've seen those super stringers added to ship 28 yet. So I don't know what the reasoning for that is.
Well, I guess with ship 28, it would be a little difficult or different because they would have to remove, and let's just pretend this is ship 28, they would have to remove the tiles in this area in order to get that there. So they could do it about halfway around, but they wouldn't be able to get all the way around without doing that. So, I mean, I guess that's something to look out for when ship 28 finishes its static fire testing campaign. If they send it back to the build site and start doing additional modifications to it, that'll be interesting to see. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen though, because I think a lot of us are really excited for the launch to happen relatively early in next year. But I don't know. At the same time, having these things, doing everything they need to do instead of like rushing a launch is important because it allows them to get closer to actually using this for dispensing Starlinks and skipping over something that could make that system fail just pushes out even further how long we should expect it to be until we finally see them use these for payloads. Well, I think let's see, we may be done at Massie's. I don't know if there's anything additional that we wanted to cover here. We've spent way more time than almost a full hour on this. So I think I guess there is one more thing. We'll just give an update on this building down here. I think we did mention last week that they have a bridge crane that is within this building. I think the bridge crane rail, tough to see from here. Actually can't see it.
I think you can see the left one just above the stairs going up to the mezzanine.
Oh, right there?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So there's one bridge crane rail there. Then obviously the other one's going to be on this side, so that's why we can't see it. But then there's a bunch of conduit coming out here, which tough to tell that that's conduit, but from other angles you can kind of see it a little bit better. But looks like they are like running the electrical stuff for that bridge crane as well too. And again, we still don't know what the purpose of this building is, but I guess that's the one remaining thing that we haven't discussed out here. So
they did put the siding up on just that one wall this week, so I don't know that we're ever going to be able to see in again.
Yeah, this is one of those buildings that we may never know what they actually do there unless we see some like signs of it on the outside of it to kind of give a little bit of indication. But yeah. All right. Well, shall we move over to the Sanchez site?
Sounds good.
Indeed. Touch on catching up on some donations here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to remind everybody this is the second annual St. Jude Children's Research Hospital charity stream from RGV. We like to do this just before Christmas. It is a cause very near and dear to all of our hearts because no child should die in the dawn of life. Families never receive a bill from St. Jude, so every last one of these dollars from all of you generous donators are going straight to the cause. Treatments developed at St. Jude have helped push the overall childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to more than 80% since they opened it more than 60 years ago. All of your donations help generously. Thank you so much. Mauser with $20, James L. with $20, Explorando el Espacio donated $20, CM O'Connell $50, JK Video $20, Matt Moore $50, $20 from Anonymous, Alan McKathleen $20, Mauser Mom $200,
Mauser Mom.
Stumpy $200, $20 from another Anonymous, Dalasaki €20, 100 from another Anonymous, 50 from another Anonymous, Dami Dagor €20, 10 CHF, I don't know that currency, from another Anonymous, and $25 from another Anonymous, Julian Richards with £5. Thank you all so much. We're caught up.
I'm sitting here Googling PHF currency.
CHF.
CHF? Oh. Swiss francs.
Aha. Thank you, sir.
Learn something every day. All right. Well, yet another area of the site where we have a ton of stuff to discuss. The Sanchez site. So, not a lot happening over here at the ground fabrication building, although it is finally complete. They're getting all of their mechanical stuff online. So, like, they have their argon tank, and then I think these are possibly like acetylene and some other things because they do a lot of welding in here. So yeah, they're still working. I guess they've kind of finished up the electrical work. They ran a bunch of conduit around underground down here, and they're finished up with that and starting to get all of the final concrete laid around the perimeter of it. Moving on, we have the final, well, at least so far, the final booster engine install stand has been is nearly complete. I think it is complete at this point, and so is the actual engine platform. And we've also seen the ship engine install platform has been completed as well, and that has been moved over into the Mega Bay, which thanks to Vix, if she's watching, I do have some footage of that really quick, which I'll show. Let's see, where is it? So yeah, this is right here. It's kind of confusing. So this is looks like that engine install platform being lifted, but they kind of placed it on the ground, which is weird. Or are they? Okay, so it is going on top of stands. So yeah, went into the back left corner of the new Mega Bay, and that's one of those things that we're also going to talk about more this week. Well, I guess I don't have images of the front side of here, but we mentioned last week that the Mega Bay is or the new Mega Bay seems to be, seems that it's going to be used for primarily ships. Which is very interesting. It seems like everything that was happening in the high bay is now moving over to the Mega Bay, or the new Mega Bay, which is very interesting. It is possibly a sign that the function of the high bay is going to change, or that they will remove it. So that's going to be exciting. Let's see. We got the next big thing, which we've all been excited about, is the next integration tower, which I guess I'll start over in this area. So they've kind of been clearing up space down over here. I think they're kind of like flattening the area over here. This is where I think they had at least, it was either 2 or 3 integration tower sections that were constructed over in this area initially. But down here, they've gotten had a lot more progress with completing the pads for these. So there's one right here, one right there, so that's 2. There's one right here, 3. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, actually, I guess I will go to this image. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So far there's 5 pads. They're going to need 9 of them. But I think the rest of them may go down either in this area or potentially on the backside over here. But yeah, they're definitely making a lot of progress with this. And I think now is a good time to address something that we get lots of questions about. I've gotten a lot of comments on Twitter, so I figure we might as well discuss it here. A lot of people are asking whether or not the integration tower is going to need to be taller for the new version of the Starships. Short answer is no, but the long answer, and this is kind of something that we'll just go through the evidence here. Let me see, where do I start? So here, I'm going to pull up this diagram actually from my good friends at Virtual Space 3D. And this right here is the basically the diagram for the first integration tower at Starbase. So this is, 8 or 9 sections technically, 7 full length sections. That's like their 3 subsections on each, or 3 floors on each one. And then the 8th was 2 sections long, and the 9th was just this little top piece over here. So the thing is, the second tower, and these are actually not correct, unfortunately, but we could still use this to show y'all. So the tower at KSC was built a little bit different, and the actually this is a little bit confusing. So I think the one at KSC had 2, like the 7th section was actually not a 3. It only had two floors, and the 8th section also had 2 floors, and then the 9th section was the top plus this level right here. And so now when we look at these images from Greg Scott, we can see everything that is basically part of this tower. So that's 6 full length sections, 1 2 floor section, and then there's the pieces that are down here, which are the ones that are currently have already been delivered to Starbase. And then back here in this corner, we can see the smaller sections for the top. And so based on this, we already know that this is going to be the exact same height as the other towers. So as far as like what the evidence shows, there is no reason to expect this tower to be taller. And I think a lot of people are worried that it needs to be taller for some reason, and that's, I guess, just due to the fact that the ships are going to be getting longer soon. But one thing to note is that the tower, and I'm going to actually switch back here so I can go grab an image. The tower has already been designed with that in consideration, so the tower is not currently maxed out at all. It has a pretty good amount of room to move, or for the chopsticks to move further up. And hopefully I can find this picture quickly. Sent a rather large number of tweets yesterday, so this might be difficult to find. Here we go. So yeah, this is a picture I took last time I was at Starbase, and this is when they were lifting ship 25 onto booster 9. And you can see that there's still plenty of room for the chopsticks to move up to the top of the tower. So I don't know how many ring sections that is, but it's quite a bit. Obviously, it's probably not going to go all the way up to the bottom. The block will prevent it from moving that far. But they still have at least one more floor, which I think is like 12 meters. I can't remember how tall each floor is, but at least 12 meters. And then beyond that, the ship, the mounting points, like just imagine it stretching, like the mounting points can stay exactly where they are, and the ship can still get taller. It doesn't have to be lifted from under the flaps. And
Yeah. Not only that, Zach, too, a lot of people wonder, okay, if you stretch the ship and you put a payload on top, will it rotate around? But one of the things to remember is those lower points will hold it in place as long as they can't be overcome. I mean, you could probably put something heavy enough to eventually put enough torsion on them to mess them up. But the ship's also lifted with those 2 ball joints, and so it's locked into place when it's lifted.
yeah, and assuming we're gonna probably see a different design for the flaps soon, as far as them being more leeward, I guess. This won't be grabbing from underneath the flaps anyways, so it's not like that's a design requirement to lift from directly under the flaps. So one way or another, we won't see it right up against the flaps anymore. So yeah, there's really not much of a reason to expect the tower to get taller because it's just not really necessary. But yeah, I guess continuing on, there's lots of other stuff happening out here. I don't know if you guys want to comment on any of these. We still don't know what's going on with this building. Nate, have you
We actually do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as of yesterday, they started lifting the Starlink gateways up on top. Well, just one for now, but they started lifting those up. Which that building has been a mystery to me for months now, so I'm glad to finally get an answer.
So is it make it like a, I don't know, some sort of tracking station or what? Like a comm center?
They call it a gateway, so it's like what will connect into the internet. And they have one of these down, by the Prancing Pony, that is probably going to go away, I assume. And this is its replacement. But it's what the Starlink user terminals talk to. Well, sorry, the Starlink satellites talk to this to connect to the internet. And then
So
the
it's
user
basically like,
terminals talk to the satellites.
gotcha.
Yeah. I would go a little bit further too and say that almost all this new conduit they put in both directions goes into this building. So, I think this is kind of a hardened electrical and data building, and so they're going to use the roof for that Starlink gateway. But then the building itself is, it's pretty hardy. It's kind of designed to contain all that and keep all that safe, whether it be a hurricane, weather, a rocket exploding, whatever it may be. It seems to be kind of, one of those buildings you see built for that type of a setup.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, it could, I guess, theoretically be like, I don't know, house like all their data and stuff, right? Like I can't tell if these is correct, but it almost looks like these are boards covering up holes out here so they can run HVAC through there. It's like another one. Not 100%.
And I believe that the main floor was elevated, so I believe it's going to give flood protection to things that aren't on the bottom floor. It seems like it was a little bit above the ground level.
Right. Yeah, I guess we don't know if this first level is even accessible or if this stairway just goes straight up to the second floor. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and look at other pictures because I can't. I thought they filled in that first level, but I could be wrong. Cool. So I guess moving on a little bit. What else do we have here? Okay, this is interesting. So they're running. This is kind of interesting. I think these are like water lines. It almost looks like. I don't know if I'm seeing this right, but they look like pipes instead of electrical stuff. So it seems like they're running some sort of water line back here. But another thing that we've also seen, and I don't know if it's visible out here, there was a directional driller somewhere out here. Hold on, let me move to another angle. It's not going to do it. Yeah, I don't know if it's still out here, but there was a directional driller out here. Yeah, I don't think it's here. But so I guess one of the thoughts is that there's a possibility that they're running a long water line somewhere, and that like probably using that directional driller theoretically could go all the way to Brownsville. I'm not sure if that's actually what's happening, but it's possible. So like if they want to avoid the need to have trucks shipping water all the way from Brownsville up to here, they could just actually run a pipeline so that they're sending water directly to this location. So that is a possibility of what they're doing. I'm going to have to see if I can find that directional driller, but I don't think it's still out here.
They had some on the street in the dirt area on the top right of your corner where it's combed off. They had some in all the corners areas, I believe, that they'd been working on. Was it last week or the week before, or when we had last flyovers? But I know they had some out there. I'm not sure if you were talking about that one or if it was further into the work area.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly where it was located, actually. Yeah, I may have to follow up with that. But sorry, I'm trying to get another angle over here. Do you guys have any idea what's going on with this? Is this SN15's aft section?
Pretty sure they're just using it as a way of, well, I don't even know if they're actually doing it with the aft section. If you look at the two guys there, it looks like they're dumping those tanks and they're just using it for boil off.
Oh, this almost looks like soap water, like they just washed it.
Possibly, I guess that could definitely be a possibility.
Because I feel like if this was like liquid nitrogen or oxygen, they probably wouldn't be standing that close to
Nope,
it.
they wouldn't be. And when I saw the image earlier, I didn't even notice the two guys.
Yeah, so maybe they like washed out the inside. I don't know. It's tough to tell, but just
For those S-33 sections, I think that's what Jake's saying in the back.
this.
Yeah, that's where they've been moving the S-33 stuff to for presumably scrapping, but I don't know why they'd be washing it if they're going to scrap it. Maybe
Yeah,
it'll become another test article.
hey, they always seem to need more of those. Um, yeah, I mean, one of the only thing that's really left over from the air separation unit is these tanks and all of their like little electrical stations down here. So this is interesting. I'm not sure if these are um, they're just waiting to move them somewhere else. I think it's possible that we could see them at the orbital tank farm. However, the tanks that they've been using over there are significantly larger than these. So, oh wow, okay. So these could also be going to Massey's since they're um, seem to be preparing for additional tank storage out there. They could be holding on to these for Massey's, which will be interesting if they end up moving those there. So Rocket Garden. We don't have much progress on this building over here, but we were kind of thinking it was some sort of pump station for water. But that's still hasn't really made much progress. As far as the Rocket Garden goes, everything is like relatively the same from last week. Still have booster 10 with its hot stage ring, booster 4, ship 26. Gosh, ship 31.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
After they moved them around so much, it's hard to keep track.
Yeah, ship 31 and then ship 20 right here. So, yeah, not a ton of stuff happening at the garden right now, but always fun to still mention what's over here. The other big thing, I guess, that we should mention just briefly is these little. I think these are load spreaders right here. So we'll keep an eye. We'll just mention that these are here because we'll talk about them a little bit later. Because these have been here for a very long time, and they're actually related to the cryo shells at the launch complex. So we'll talk about that here in a bit. In the meantime, let's move over to the ring yard, unless there's anything else at Sanchez that we need to talk about. No, actually, Astro Joe, do we have questions from the Sanchez site?
The questions queue is currently clear.
Awesome. Cool. Well, in that case, we'll move over to the ring yard. Let's see. So again, these images were taken from a much lower altitude, as y'all can tell, than what they're normally taken at. So this kind of gives us an interesting view of the backside of this mega bay. And I guess one of the things that we should mention is it's starting to get its I call them the feet because it's like at the base. But I don't know if these are the like mechanical rooms or something like that, or if they're actual office space. I think they're possibly for the HVAC though. But yeah, they're starting to add that on this side, and I guess one of the big questions has been whether or not we'll see another Raptor like storage building on the back of this building, and tough to say for sure. But what we do know is that at the bottom corner over here, they have started to lay some conduit down. It looks like right now that it's kind of tough to see because hold on, let me see if I have a better. Yeah, there we go. So it kind of looks like they've ran conduit along the backside under here, and they've already covered it up. But then there's a lot more of it coming out over here. So that, in my opinion, seems to suggest that the Raptor storage, if they are going to have one, will be on the opposite side and not on the back, which makes sense because in order to put one back here, I think they may need to get into this land back here in order to have like room for the driveway behind the building, just based on like how deep this thing goes. So yeah, I think we'll still see Raptor storage right here. It theoretically won't need to be anywhere near as large though, because you only have 6 to 9 engines per ship versus 33 per booster. So the goal, I mean, you could just only have one Raptor storage and move things back and forth between these two buildings. However, I think they are really trying to like streamline things and keep them as close as they can be. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to keep our eyes out on. One other thing to mention, I did think that this steel right here was possibly going to be used for another floor on the top of the mega bay, but I think it's actually looking like this is the steel for this structure right here. So that is not the case, what I thought before. Let's see, what else? Go ahead.
Try something since we're in the production zone. Jax.
And just like that, it happens.
Oh, wow. What's up,
Yeah.
Jax?
It's like rubbing a lamp and getting a genie.
How are you?
Wild
all?
Jax appears.
That's funny. I messaged Jax earlier to see if he would come, and he's like, nope, not gonna do it. So
I rushed back for you. I wanted to make it here.
well, I appreciate it. We have some. I guess we can switch to some ground images unless there's some aerial stuff, because I know you were mentioning some things last night about on the ground. We did talk about Ship 26 already. I don't know if you wanted to further add anything on that, but leave it up to you. Jax?
Say again, sorry?
I guess like
Hey,
what
I
areas
haven't done this in a while.
you're fine. I guess what areas would you like to cover? I'm guessing we may need to switch to some ground images since we got the backside of the Mega Bay back here, or the ring yard.
Yeah, I think that would be best for right now. We have some nice shots of the ring yard.
Cool. Okay, so ground images right here, and yeah, like I said, we already discussed Ship 26. So I don't know if there's anything in the high bays you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, Moser gave a pretty good rundown of what's going on with Ship 26 and how that's all going. With the high bay here, we have Ship 30 on the left, Ship 29 on the right. And in the past, since they did their little shuffle ahead of Ship 28's rollout, we can see that they've begun removing tiles from Ship 29's welded areas. So those are where the tiles are fixed on with adhesive. Ship 25 during the second flight test of Starship had evidently a lot of issues in that area. It lost numerous tiles. So on Ship 28, we saw a similar thing. They took all of them off, cleaned up the area, and reinstalled them. Expect we're going to see that happen here too. I don't know. Long-term solutions, do you think that do you all think that this might be an adequate fix, or do you think we're going to have to see something a little bit more involved to fix these heat shield problems that have become pretty evident?
Well, I mean, I guess the question is like what they did differently, because I know that with, was it Ship 28, they did the like the suction test on the tiles, right?
Yeah.
And then they replaced all of the ones that came off. Like I guess my question would be like, what did they do differently when they reapplied them? Do we know?
I don't think we know for sure. I know many have speculated that they've been a little bit better with their cleanliness of the surface in the past. I mean, it's a very dirty facility, so it's hard to have things be super clean. But maybe they've been working a bit better with that. We'll see during Flight 3 how it goes. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about this one Pathfinder that was in the ring yard. I don't know if it still is. With smaller heat tiles. But ultimately, we don't necessarily know where that's going to go in relation to the ship, assuming that's related to the version 2 Starship. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of interesting things to see. They've only flown the heat shield 2 times in its entirety, and there's a lot of lessons learned each time. Once they start making it through re-entry, I suspect we're going to see numerous other changes as well.
Yeah, and I mean that with that test article that we saw with all of the smaller pins, like, do you think that is possibly like related to this, or do you think that's just something else entirely?
I suspect that that specific section, just given some various characteristics of that ring section, some external stringers on it, and various other things, I believe that is testing tiles for an area that does use the adhesive, but towards the lower end of the ship. They have a row of external stringers over the aft dome weld of the ship. It's near the top of the aft flap. And I suspect that that's kind of what they were looking at doing there. Not to say that that technology could not be used in other areas of the ship. That's my personal speculation as to what that was. And I mean, some other people have wondered if it could be covering the well lines, things like that. I don't know if Moser, Nate, Todd, if you have any ideas about if that could be implemented in those spots.
I do think that was my first assumption when I saw it, is they want to stop gluing these tiles. I do think, they glue tiles on the nose cone and around the flaps too, and those don't seem to have the same issues that these do, right around like the domes. So I wonder if it's a temperature thing or some kind of different process, but I think they need to implement something better in those areas. So that's my guess, is they want to try finding a way to put pins on those and still attach the tiles that way.
Yeah, and that could make sense. I mean, we know that the mechanical pin system allows a little bit of play in the tiles. The glue doesn't as much, so maybe with the thermal contraction of the ship, that's part of why they're having these issues, like you said. Yeah, we haven't seen this process done to Ship 30 yet. I suspect we will. Ship 32 and Ship 31 haven't had those sections tiled over yet, so they shouldn't need to redo anything. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take some extra time, and I guess kind of a benefit is if they're going to be doing the same thing to the base of the payload bay like they've done to Ship 26 on these other ships, they're pulling off the tiles either way. So it kind of works out.
Yeah. I was just thinking we didn't really mention Ship 28 moving out at all. I'm sure most people kind of saw it. I was looking for some good footage of it rolling to the oh gosh, sorry, got some noise in the background there. But I did find some footage of it from Starship Gazer that he posted both to Twitter and YouTube, so maybe I'll show that really quick. So this is the decorations that SpaceX put onto the transport stand while they were moving out, before they moved out Ship 28. I think there's a guy on here kind of adjusting the snowman right there.
I just thought that was really neat of them to do. That's not a quick one guy thought of throwing some lights on there. They put time into that. I know my daughter loved it. I'm sure the other kids who are into this loved it. I just think it was really cool that they did that.
Is this why they kept delaying the rollout? They needed more time for decorations.
I honestly I was wondering the same thing. I feel like it was that was the reason.
Walmart didn't have enough.
I do know they were working on. They were working on Rudolph's nose the last few minutes, and I think there was 5 or 6 of them out there trying to get that lit. So it might have been.
Yeah, this snowman over here is really struggling as they're moving this.
Yeah, between this and the googly eyes, it seems like the employees are having a good time.
Yeah, gotta keep it
I
fun.
forgot to mention that. The googly eyes.
But,
Should I
yeah.
let me actually bring that up really quick, because I think Jax, you were the one who kind of first figured out what it was. Let me let me grab this really quick. So hold on, they're going way back here. So can we see it in the ground images? I'm not sure if we can.
Hey, let Joe break in really quick, because I think Joe's got something exciting to share.
Yeah, go ahead.
Indeed, we are very close, if not already breaking our goal of 5,000. Yes, we did. Thank you all so much. Like I say, this is a very important cause to all of us. Helping reduce childhood cancer. My goodness, I got some people to thank here. Let me scroll up. Jim Cabot with $10. Drunar, 20 Canadian dollars. Cliff M, 200. Anonymous, $20. Ryan Hansen Space, thank you so much, $100. Richard Mouser, another Mouser, wow, $200, thank you so much. Adrian Riviero, $50. Chad F99, $101, just to make sure we had an even amount there, I guess. Canes with $50. Sheriff Tracy, $50. Another Anonymous with 20. Jim Cabot with another 10. Chris L, 10 pounds. And Rocket Profit started a $5 train with an Anonymous. Brian Green, $100. RGV Aerial Photography, $100. He did mention that the PayPal donations would go right back into the YouTube Super Chats without YouTube taking any cuts. ATSF 854, $10. Rocket Profit with the $5. Another Canadian $5 from Anonymous. Walter Brown, 5 pounds. Yazada, $5. Anonymous with 50 euros. Drew Nar, $5. Brian Green, $5. Got a couple of last minute ones coming in here. Jimmy Z, $20. Stan J, $20.
Right out there.
Kenmuck, $50. Darth Lawrence, $5. And thank you all so much. We have exceeded our goal at $5,165 so far. Thank you so much, everybody.
Awesome. And yeah, even though we've exceeded the goals, it's still awesome if you guys continue to donate. It would be awesome if we could possibly even double the goal. That would be amazing. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Jared Isaacman will be matching the donations from this stream. So the better we do, the better that we'll get some matching donations from Jared. And sorry, I said that kind of weird, but you guys know what I mean. So moving on, I guess it's a little difficult to see from this angle, but y'all can see that they've added on some googly eyes on here onto the ship 24.2 test article. And so this would be the payload bay right here, which is kind of like the mouth, and these are some eyes right here. And I guess Jax was able to figure out where this came from. And I would play the clip, but I don't think the audio is going to come through. So I guess, well, I can play the clip, but the audio won't come through. So essentially, Jax, how did you even remember that this statement was made in here? So this was during the Tim's tour of Starbase. I think it was the most recent one. And so basically, he mentioned. Well, I'll let you explain it, Jax.
I think you should all understand by now that I simultaneously have a terrible and astounding memory. So I remember some random details at times, and it just kind of stuck out in my mind when I saw those eyes. I said, "I've seen that before." Yeah, I thought it was quite funny. They're definitely prone to having fun.
Yeah, and so since I can't play the audio, basically Tim mentions in here that how funny the payload door looks, and that it should have like googly eyes over the top of it. And so that's essentially like what they did. More than a year later, and sorry, that was the wrong image. More than a year after he made that joke, they actually ended up throwing those googly eyes on there, which is hilarious. I think it would be even cooler to see those on like ship 28, even though well, I don't think it will affect anything. It'd be a cool little addition on ship 28. But yeah, sorry, that was a bit off topic. We will move back to the build site area. So there was some other interesting things over here that Jax wanted to discuss. Well, hold on. First, I guess we'll mention just the work that's going on the top of the mega bay. So we've still been waiting for the new doors, or the new door to be installed, and they have not done that yet, but they have removed some paneling above here, and I guess we finally know what that was about. I think these are just. I don't think these are actual HVAC. I think they're just ventilation fans. Kind of tough to tell for sure because I don't see any um, HVAC hoses going to them. So yeah, it looks like. Go ahead.
So there's nothing behind them. It just looks like frames for the louvers for vents.
Yeah, which is weird. I mean, I guess if they're pumping like with the doors closed, if they're pumping, um, cool air into this area, then they also need somewhere for it to get out, right? So this would probably be, um, so they're not building air pressure inside of there. It has somewhere to actually escape. So hot air coming out the top, cool air coming in from the bottom, kind of thing. But yeah, further preparations for that actual door, which nobody wants to really see. Um, so yeah, sorry. Anyways, let's keep moving on. What do we got? What's happening in Mega Bay 1 this week?
This week has been pretty interesting. I don't know if anybody else here. We had a section rolled to the Mega Bay yesterday. Mauser, Nate, or Todd, if you want to talk about that for a moment.
Are you talking about the long-awaited B-13 aft section?
Yes, I am, sir.
Yeah, so B-13 up until today, I guess it's been hanging there in the middle of Mega Bay with everything for its LOX tank except the aft. And it waited and waited and waited, and I don't know, maybe a month later it finally came out. That was last night, and I believe sometime overnight they stacked it. So the LOX tank should be fully stacked for booster 13 in the left side of Mega Bay.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I do have some footage that Vix posted on X. This is from Lab Padre, obviously. So this is the Booster 13 aft section finally moving in there. And how long have
Yeah,
they been waiting
Jack,
for that?
uh, I believe it's been about half a year since Booster 12s went to the Mega Bay. All Booster 13 did originally have an aft section, so did 14, and part of 15s. All of them were scrapped earlier this year for some unknown reason, and they made this new one in the Star Factory. Now that it's all done, they moved it in, stacked it. We don't really know what that was about, if and what they changed. You have to remember that this is an incredibly complex section of the vehicle. It's probably the most complicated section of the Starship vehicle. So when there's changes, we're not necessarily going to see them. They're probably going to be tucked in the inside or little changes to the valve systems, wiring harnesses, etc. But yeah, that's done now. They're yet to start the liquid methane tank for 13 or start stacking it. My apologies, but yeah, that should hopefully not take too long once they get going on it.
Um, moving on here a little bit, I did mention that the first ship engine install stand had gotten moved into into Mega Bay 2, so I guess we don't really necessarily need to cover that. But one thing that they did start doing this week for Mega Bay 2, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to necessarily show it. Maybe. Yeah. So this is something they've done on Mega Bay 1 already, which was install new LED bars along the on the main structural beams, or yeah, the main structural beams. So they've started to install those inside of Mega Bay 2, and these things are super bright. If you ever look at any of the Lab Padre streams at night, like these things are extremely bright. But up until they started using these, they were basically using flashlights on the inside of these buildings, and so this pretty much lights it up very well. You can probably see it from South Padre Island. But yeah, they've gotten much better with that lighting. Interestingly enough, they do not have these in the high bay, which arguably needs it more because there's all these ships packed in there all tight. But they have not installed those in the high bay, which I don't know, could be a sign that of the future for the high bay. Just
Well,
not.
we'll see. Your opinions about the bays have been changing quite rapidly, so we'll see how it is next week.
Hey, I just move with the times.
Yeah.
So what else do we have in the ring yard? I know there was some interesting ring sections that happened that were visible out here. Where was it?
Yeah, there was one kind of interesting ring section on the outside of tent 3. Hopefully just a couple more photos over.
No, it's a lot of more photos over. Give me a sec. Actually, hold on.
It's a lot more photos over.
This one?
Yeah, there it is. So I was talking with Nick about this yesterday evening. We've never really seen anything like this before. It's a 3-ring section. It's had internal stringers installed on one half of it. So the side facing the Star Factory from this doesn't have the stringers. We were able to see that in an older flyover, and we were also able to note that if you look, so the vertical stringers are those dotted weld lines going from the top to the bottom, and we noticed that the welds on these ones are there's more of them closer together. It's not how they normally weld the stringers on, which is kind of an interesting detail. I don't know if any of you have an idea as to why they would do that, because I'm kind of at a loss.
So you mean just the individual dots, like there's more
Yeah.
of them instead of that's a good question. I've always been wondering like why they were so far apart in the first place because like they're obviously trying to do that like as quickly as possible, and I don't know if it's like added weight by increasing the amount of welds or whatever. Like by having them further spaced out, it reduces the amount of material they're adding.
Yeah,
I do wonder if increasing the amount of welds, I would imagine, also strengthens it a little bit more, right?
I'm sure would. I mean, it depends on the area. I'm sure in which would actually be necessary. But yeah, it depends. Like we're in this pathfinding phase now. A lot of people talk about the version 2.0 Starship, which I've never had a chance to talk about on these streams yet. But I don't think it's extremely imminent. They're sort of in this pathfinding phase, which we've seen many times before. Whether this is related to that Starship, we'll see. That's going to be a wait and see type deal. But eventually we'll hopefully find out. Maybe we'll see some new stringer patterning on that, or the necessity for additional reinforcements.
Is this a booster section?
I've never seen anything like this before.
So we don't know. So I mean, I guess that almost implies it's a ship section, considering the boosters. We're not necessarily expecting like too many changes with the boosters as much as we are with the ships.
I mean, it's hard to be sure with the booster. I mean, we know they're doing this big revision around the ship 34-ish area. Whether that's actually the number that flies, we can only speculate. They're a bit further behind on boosters. They think they have up to ship 31's partner, booster 13, in production. So that still leaves ship 32's partner, booster 14, which there's barrels for it, but they haven't started stacking it. Booster 15 would have been with ship 33. Ship 33, I think it's become ever clear at this point that ship 33 is not being continued as a flight article. In this photo, actually, you can see the forward dome section of ship 33 in the background, which is unfinished. It's that pinned section in the back.
Which one is this? 34?
33 is forward dome.
Okay, so this is probably going to get scrapped then?
I suspect it will. It is definitely unfinished. You can see some pretty cool things on the top of it, though. If you zoom in on the top of the forward dome, there are two kind of taped over ports flush with the dome. Those should actually be where the internal tank cameras look in, which is kind of cool. There's the ports for the autogenous pressurization, all of that. That's all unfinished. And given that they've sent it out and stopped working on it, I suspect it'll be like the rest of ship 33. They've already scrapped like 75% of the ship. It's just the payload bay and the forward dome that remain. Curiously, though, and I believe Mauser, you might know a bit more about this than I do. They don't seem to be showing any signs of scrapping that payload bay, do they?
No, they keep bringing it out and working on it. Like, yeah, I don't know what the point of it is, but it's come out of the tent probably 3 or 4 times. It's usually just to shuffle other stuff around inside the tent, but when every other piece has been left out in the dirt or chopped into pieces, it doesn't really fit with the rest of them.
Yeah.
I think
So
it's probably going to be used for a test article soon.
yeah, and I mean it very well could be, depending on how the testing with 24.2 went. Once again, we can only guess, and that was covered a bit earlier. But I mean, depending on what ship 34 looks like, if it could be reused on the later ship, that's something that can be considered at least. There's many possibilities. It's just that payload bay seems to be sticking around for the time being.
Yeah. Very interesting. Let's see. What else do we have to cover at the ring yard?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I know back in Mega Bay 1, there's been a little bit of work on Booster 11 and Booster 12. I don't know if we have any photos of Booster 12, but 11 we do. They're getting the chines onto it finally. If we have an angle, I don't know if we have an angle that shows it super well this week with Booster 13 blocking it. Oh, yes, we do. You can see the chines behind the scaffolding at the back. So right there, you can see a chine behind the scaffolding covering one of the carbon dioxide tanks for the onboard fire suppression system. And that fire suppression system, as you may recall, was added after the first flight of Starship, when Booster 7 experienced numerous fires in its aft section, which ultimately led to the destruction of the vehicle. Yeah, so 11's getting all tidied up, and there's engine shielding that seems to be roaming around for Booster 11 now. I don't know how much.
Yeah, that was one thing that I did not show in the aerials for Sanchez, which is actually kind of cool. So this right here, these are tough to see. So if those of you who watched my most recent episode will remember these. If not, these are going to be kind of hard to tell what you're seeing right here, but these are the vertical walls, or the divider walls for the actual hold on, one more. Here we go. I think this one might show it just a little bit. Yeah, these are the divider walls for the outer engine shielding. You can kind of see the shape of where the barrel section goes in between these. But yeah, so these are the new double-walled dividers, these are meant for 11, right?
They should be, and what's really cool is that while they get the parts for them shipped in, they put these together and fabricate them inside of the tent. If you look more towards the right on the other side of the inventory tent, and move your cursor just up and right to the bit, there's a little pile, and there's one of the parts of them that's not assembled that's been shipped in. Yeah, right there.
So they come in pieces, and then they fabricate them inside of here and send
That's
them
what
out.
it looks like. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I almost kind of like expected that stuff to be like shipped and like completed. But I guess it makes sense that they're doing a lot of that fabrication work on site.
It's good to see that they're moving more of that into the Starbase facility itself.
Agreed. Let me go back. I guess we should probably maybe talk about the Star Factory. Seems like something people are interested in. Hold on, let me see. I got a good view of it actually right here, so this is kind of cool. Man, I actually need another view of this. But so we mentioned last week that they had these new columns that were delivered, and so they've actually started installing these. I think I have some good shots in the ground images. The weird thing about these that somebody pointed out to me last night is that they actually don't. It was Nick from Chameleon Circuit mentioned that these don't align with the other columns, and you can actually. It's tough to see right here, but they actually stick out a little bit. And I don't remember where that image that they showed me came from. Um, but maybe maybe we can kind of see it in the ground shots here. Okay, where is it? Yeah, it's really tough to see from this angle, but essentially these actually this wall, this outer wall kind of lines up like right around here, not necessarily all the way against the back of this one, but like somewhere in the actual the truss, I guess you can say. So it's weird because it sticks out further than the other wall. And I guess one of the things that we've been kind of wondering about is like why they switched this up from what the structure of the rest of the building is. Um, and yeah, I guess, do you guys have any thoughts on why they would change that up?
I think at one point we thought maybe this section was going to be higher, but they seem to have completed the first column, and so it seems that this section must be designed to lift heavier material, a heavier section of ship, like it's going to have a bigger bridge crane.
One of the other thoughts was just different contractors doing things different ways, like we seem to have seen in the past. But I agree with Nate that that's it. I think it's going to just be lifting heavier stuff.
Yeah, it's weird because I can't really imagine this being better, like that much better structurally than the beams they already have. Especially because the actual bridge crane rails are not attached to these main structures. You can kind of see one back here. There's a column that's bolted onto the main column, and the bridge crane rails sit on top of that. So it's a little bit weird because I personally don't think these contribute to the bridge cranes at all. But I mean, one of the other possibilities that people have mentioned this week is that they may have switched it up because they plan on putting windows on this section of the building, and I guess the windows wouldn't necessarily look as good with with this type of structure. Since you're like seeing into the building, this could be like more like possibly an aesthetic thing. I know that SpaceX doesn't normally do things for aesthetics, but that is one suggestion I've seen, which I think is kind of interesting.
One of the things, and I'm not a structural engineer, and so take this with a grain of salt. The little section that completes one of these columns attaches to that back edge, and the only view I've seen of it right now is on Sentinel, and it's really hard to get a really detailed view of it. But it may mean that this bridge crane rail is actually going to be on top of this beam itself.
Well, that'd be interesting. Yeah, I mean,
I was wondering that too, because it looks like there's one when they put the last piece on. There's one piece that goes extremely higher, which looks like it would be the roof setting, and then the other piece kind of ends early. So that was also one of my thoughts of possibilities. But I'm glad somebody else thinks that too, because that makes sense. But yet the whole thing still is confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I think that's going to be one of the big things to keep our eyes on. I mean, overall, I am hoping that we finally see some windows on this building because, I mean, literally the entire thing is like a prison as far as not having any open windows at all.
Yeah,
But
I couldn't imagine a better spot to watch static fires from than up there behind glass and air conditioning.
oh wow, yeah, that would actually be pretty cool. Well, arguably up on top of one of the bays would be even better, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I also just noticed in the bottom of this photo, is that a turntable back in the Star Factory?
Yes, it is. We saw that last night, show and tell. Yep, it sure does look like it.
Oh well, yeah, interesting. And
Whether
yeah,
it's permanent
that's
or
the
just
ozone section,
sitting
right?
there, we don't know.
That's interesting. I think did we see them lift that in there? It's kind of weird because it just like appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah, I never saw it. This is the first time I've seen it, which I'm surprised because they just finished this part of the factory up. I wouldn't think there'd be stuff in there already.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do wonder, with this being the taller part of the building, if this is like a welding station for when they join the payload section to the nose cone. But it's tough to tell from this image. This is okay. It is on the tall side of the building, so yeah. I mean that could possibly be like one use for it. Um, but yeah, I wonder if they'll end up throwing more of those in here as well too. I mean, I guess you only really need to do that circular weld one time, but that would be an interesting first step for that payload bay, is just actually joining them together. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool that we actually see this before they finish putting this wall up, so we actually have idea of at least one workstation that's back there. Cool. I guess we maybe can move on from the this area, unless there's anything else that I haven't mentioned. Any other build site stuff that we maybe need to talk about? I don't think so.
I think we can move on.
Yeah, cool. All right. So I guess we'll move over to the village. We'll just briefly touch on this. So this is the one big update, which was very weird this week. So I'm sure y'all remember this building back here, which we all watched as it was being constructed. I don't know, like 5 months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. So basically, what they were using this for is constructing all of their like GSE pipes. So all of the pipes that were used for the new kettle boilers at the launch site were all constructed in this building, and I think they did some other stuff in here as well too. But yeah, so now this building has been demolished as of this week. I think it was literally the day after this flyover was taken. This building was deleted, so it's no longer here, which is interesting.
SpaceX giveth and SpaceX taketh away.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of people were like throwing a little bit of shade because they're like, why demolish it instead of take it apart and reset it up somewhere else? But I don't really have an answer for that. But I think that alone is a sign that SpaceX is not really worried about capital expenditures right now. I think they, have money to kind of throw around where they're not really worried about things like that. But it will be interesting to see what ends up being in this area. Right now, they do have these additional tiny homes, which are kind of just sitting in this lot right here. And I imagine that those will end up being in this area since that building's now gone. So that'll be one thing to look out for. And the tracking station ground station, Starlink ground station that Mauser was mentioning earlier, which is right here, could possibly have been moved in preparation to remove this one, but I don't know. I feel like at the same time that it's not necessarily a bad thing having two of them, and this theoretically could provide internet to like the entire neighborhood, possibly.
So a couple of things is, one, those things serve like several states around. Like, well, Texas is pretty big, but it could probably cover like all of Texas. So you really only need one. But I've noticed something that I don't know that it's been called out by anyone, but that street just on our side of the tiny homes, everything above that is basically being removed over the last several months, between the solar panels, the tracking stations. They're going to remove the Starlink gateway. So it sure seems like they're trying to clear this area out. And now that tent or building, I have no idea what they're doing. There's also 3 Tesla megapacks there, and those look like they're going to get moved to Sanchez. So I wonder if they're getting ready to build something pretty large here, or maybe just add on a lot more houses. I'm not sure, but there's some kind of new construction going.
Yeah, I mean, there is a ton of housing being added down here, but obviously, I mean, I don't think that they could fit their entire staff even within just this space. So, the more housing, the better, and that's another thing that Kathy Letters mentioned in her during the I don't know if you want to call it the Brownsville Town Hall or whatever, but yeah, I mean, increasing the amount of living space is definitely has been really big for them. And this is kind of the other end of that area where the solar panels used to be located.
Yeah, and
Go
that
ahead.
road has been my weird obsession for the last like couple months. The one they're building at the top. I asked Mauricio to try to get it all in one shot for me because I don't know what it's for, and it is gigantic. It is like way wider than all the other roads except for maybe the highway.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, um, it almost looks like a place to lay down a crane at, but I mean, right now the crane that's currently at the launch site just lays down at the launch site. So I don't know if there would be a need to have another crane parking lot over here.
Right now, it almost looks like they have ground materials sorted there. So if you look, you'll see gravel and it's together. You'll see different dirt that are, sand and other things that are actually together.
Yeah, pretty odd. I mean, they've been working on this for quite a while, but I don't see any like major progress with it. But one more other thing from this angle, you can kind of see they've also been maybe some of that dirt from over here is coming down to this area. They've kind of gotten a little L-shaped clear space back here, which they removed everything that was back in this area. So I do wonder if we'll see additional structures back here. But let's see, moving on. What is that? Might need ground shots of those to figure out what that is. But yeah, I guess maybe we can start moving over to the launch site, shall we?
Hey, Zach, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I just want to say, everyone, great work on the donations. It's been absolutely awesome. I don't know if anybody saw in there. Jimmy Z, one of my good friends I met at Crowfest, put an offer in there from about 11:30ish on my time, West Coast. He put an offer that the highest bid between then and to the end will get a piece of 24 TPS tile. So right now, I believe Brian Green is in the lead with 333 was my thought with what I think I saw. So just putting that out there, guys. If anybody wants to beat that, they're going to be getting a piece of a S24 tile. And if you have problems getting a hold of them, get a hold of me on X. My username's up there in the top or on the bottom. Let me know if you have a problem, and I'll make sure you guys get in contact. Whoever is the leader of that
Wait,
donation there.
are people bidding in the chat, or you mean like donations?
No donation, but he's offering just a piece of the TPS to the highest bidder from that point from his on. Just as trying to help people get donations and get a little bit extra for them. And it's not really a bidding contest. He's just offering it out to anybody, and just as a kind gesture, I think.
Some.
That's really cool. I would like to touch on a couple of questions before we move on. Crane Man made a statement about the Star Factory. Heavier beams should be to support heavy glass facade. Would anybody agree with that statement?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility that that's what they're going to be used for. Uh, I mean, it's kind of tough to tell before they actually finish it, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. The roof beams are also significantly larger than the original ones. You can kind of see them laying on the ground here. They're pretty massive. So yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. What is this?
And of course, everybody's asking about the small parcel of land getting acquired by SpaceX. I don't believe we've heard any updates since the last show. Anybody have anything?
Nope. Yeah, we're still waiting to hear like results of that. I think last we heard the court case was supposed to be sometime in December, I believe. But we have not heard anything else since then. I think Dave would know a little bit better.
Yeah, I thought I heard something about it getting delayed to January. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I thought January was the last delay too.
Yeah, so I mean, we're still waiting on that, and that'll be interesting if they actually um, build out this area after that. I imagine that they probably will because there's still a lot of extra steel down here, um, which I believe would be used for that section. There's tons of structural steel down here, and obviously the only area on this side would be this part right here, and this is way more than what would be needed for that. Although this could also be for this section down here as well too. So um, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Junar did have a question regarding the solar farm that's been removed. Do you think it will end up on top of Star Factory?
Um, I mean, it would make sense to put solar panels up here. I feel like, I mean, because that's what they did with the Tesla Gigafactory, and I mean, this is just a massive surface area up here that they could throw them up. But I mean, with the three-phase power from Brownsville, I'm not sure if they necessarily feel the need to do that. But I mean, being able to generate your own power to supplement um, what you're taking from the city probably is a good idea. So it is possible that we'll see those up here. What do you guys think?
I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, I think, just like the Gigafactory does, and if SpaceX wants to build these solar farms on Mars and all that, get some good practice.
Yeah, I'd kind of be shocked if they didn't. That's just so much real estate that for solar panels that's unused for really anything else. I'd be kind of shocked if they didn't.
Same.
Awesome. All right. So do we have anything else?
I want to thank a bunch of people. Get that queue cleared up before we move on to the launch site. Junar started a $5 donation train on his own, adding up to 50 Canadian dollars. Meg Weaver donated 5, an anonymous donation of 20. Clem Jim donated 20. Rocket Profit with 5, Tim Hester with 20, Brian Green 333 as mentioned previously, a 50 anonymous dollars, Wayne Metcalf with £5, another £20 anonymous donation, Jeff A, our very own stream engineer with £20, thank you sir. Pian What $20, 55 Chevy Guy Steve with another 100, adding up for a total of 600 today. Very generous 55 Chevy Guy Steve, thank you. $30 anonymous donation, Rocket Profit with another 5. Jim Cavett with 10, Brian S with 5, Jake Winlow another 5, Sharpie with 5, Methane Man with another 50, Rocket Profit with another 20, The Seeker 50 with $11 just to throw it off nicely, and Barry Wood with £20, bringing us to a total of 6,049. Thank you all for supporting the kids. That's going to make a lot of little kids smile. Appreciate you all. We're all caught up. Let's go.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. And if you guys haven't done so already, do us a favor and hit that like button on the stream. I'm surprised this is my first time mentioning it. It's given that we're 2 hours into the show. But on that note, obviously we're going over on time a little bit. So if you guys appreciate the extra time, then do us a favor and hit that like button. We really appreciate all of y'all. I can't even see what the current number of likes on the stream is, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, thank you all for your donations. And yeah, let's hop over to the launch site. Oh, wow. You know what? There's one thing that we have not mentioned way earlier, which was this storage site. Because I know a lot of people have been asking about this. So before we go there, this is a storage site, which is just, I think south of Massie's or north. I think it's south of Massie's. But this is something that we're kind of expecting is going to end up being just like an extra storage yard, because right now, Massie's is not, or sorry, Sanchez is going to be housing a lot of tower sections. So there's not really room for additional storage. So we think that this is property that SpaceX has acquired specifically for just extra storage parts. You can see that they've got one little tank over here just chilling. Yeah, so that's for folks who asked about that in previous weeks. But yeah, I guess let's move back over to the launch site. Did I push the wrong button there? Actually, hold on. Here we go. Yeah, so this is a cool shot, actually showing that Gateway to Mars sign, which you can see from like probably Port Isabel and South Padre Island. Really cool to see it from this angle right here. But our big news of the week is obviously Pad A being deleted. And now that kind of brings a question into like, what is the future of the suborbital tank farm? And I think that we kind of have some hints about what is going down here. So if I switch to another image so we can kind of see all of it in one frame. And this picture's from last week. But this is basically, hold on, let me see if I can get it all in one shot. Maybe not. But yeah, this is basically the majority of the suborbital tank farm. And one of the big things that they've been doing over here over the last few weeks, obviously with that wall that they've put up, but there's been a lot of electrical work going down over here. So, I mean, this is kind of odd because initially I expected that when they converted the rest of the launch site over to the 3-phase power, that they had also done this. This is the comms building that controls most of the suborbital farm, or all of the suborbital farm. But there still is one generator out here, so I guess it's not fully on Brownsville Utilities, but there's also a possibility that this is just backup power right here. Even though I kind of doubt that, so I do think that they may be running this building off of that. But you know, they're adding in all of this extra conduit down here for electrical. But the weird thing is, I guess, partially where it ends at, you know, like right here is kind of far away from the actual building down here. And well, actually, now I think about it, it comes across the street here and then goes down this direction. So this is actually very, very similar to what they did at the orbital tank farm as far as the way it looks. And I don't know, in my opinion, this is a massive amount of conduit just for this structure right here. So I don't know. We talked about where the next orbital tank farm is going to go, or not the tank farm, but the actual next launch pad. And in my mind, this is kind of a hint on what we should expect. Like, you know, you really can't just surprise us necessarily on where this next launch pad is going to be. Like, you have to, it does get telegraphed to some degree if you're looking closely enough. And we have not seen any groundwork anywhere else for where that tower is going to be. And now they have removed Pad A. So I guess the question is, you know, what happens with the rest of the suborbital farm after they finish up with testing on Ship 28, possibly even Ship 29. I imagine that, you know, if they are planning on removing this and replacing it, then they want to get as many ships static fire tested as they can before they do that. So, you know, it's going to be a while before, you know, if they do set up a, all right, let me back up a little bit. If they put an orbital launch pad here, there's no way that Pad B is going to be able to remain in that location. You know, for one, you may need an actual secondary tank farm. It is possible that they could join the two tank farms. I guess that would require them to temporarily like shut down the entrance of the launch site and bring all of the pipework underground across to this so that they can have one tank farm supplying both launch sites. But you know, if they want to have a secondary tank farm for the secondary launch tower, then they're going to need pretty much all of this space in order to do that. So I think that they could easily fit all of those tanks that they are. You know what? I'm going to try and get a. I don't think I have a direct overhead. I was going to pull up one from last week that should show it pretty well, but I think you guys can imagine how large that other tank farm is. Fitting in this spot is definitely feasible. And this could be a secondary tank farm over here. And another suggestion that we've heard, let's say they do decide to only use one tank farm for both towers. Another good use of this area would be an air separation plant. So that's something that the air separation plant was removed at the Sanchez site, which made it so now all of their liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen is now coming from Houston again, which before they were actually able to produce some of it themselves on site, but now that's gone. So I think the removal of that is kind of a sign. Like, that's something that there's really no reason to remove it unless the cost of operations is greater than the cost of transportation back and forth to Houston, which I don't think that's the case. So I feel like they're planning on rebuilding it somewhere else. And the only place that would make sense, which in my mind is the only place that made sense from the beginning, is at the launch site. So we do know that they initially, in their initial expansion plans, had a air separation plant planned for this facility. And I don't have that diagram up here, but I believe it was originally supposed to be located like right here. And then the second launch tower was like over in this area on the corner of the screen. But if they decide to build this tower, this actually moves over more than I thought. So yeah, this is where the second launch tower, like right in this area, was originally planned to be located. Obviously, we don't see any groundwork happening over there, and they're already bringing in, those tower sections. So I guess the question is, like, are they bringing the tower sections in super early, or are we already seeing the area where it's going to be located, but they just haven't started it yet? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be much faster to demolish the stuff that's here, remove all of this tank farm, and build that tower in this location than it will be to get Army Corps of Engineer approval to not only fill in this land, but then also subtract the same amount that they fill in somewhere else. So that's going to be one of the requirements if they ever build in this area. Like, whatever volume of land that gets filled in has to be removed somewhere else in order to maintain the total volume of the flood basin. So in order to get around that, theoretically, the second launch pad could be like right in this area. So with that said, it's assuming that they aren't trying to extend out of their current footprint, I think that's another reason why ship static fire testing would have to move away from the launch site. And with that, I want to know what Mauser thinks.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that theory before. It's definitely different than mine. I think it's worth calling out that Pad A is, useless might be a little harsh, but it didn't really serve a purpose now that they have tiled ships, right? You don't want two tiled ships out there static firing next to each other, because you're just gonna, blow off a bunch of tiles and do damage. And they had upgraded Pad B, so that seems to be where they want to do their static fires. And so test stand A just kind of sat there idle for a long time. And why remove it now? I don't know. One thought I had heard thrown out is it's on this giant ramp that kind of makes the launch site inconvenient to drive around, so they could actually flatten it out a bit. I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption, but my biggest concern with putting a launch tower in this area is if you fly east, you're going directly over the tank farm or the other tower, which
That
I don't
covers
know.
quite a few
That's okay.
questions that we've had coming in right now. So thanks for touching on that.
I'm guessing all the questions are related to flying over a tank farm or launch tower.
Hey, Zach.
Yeah.
One of the conversations we had last night in the ground shot show and tell was the possibility of what if they were to take out the suborbital tank farm, put the tower in that, not right there, but off to the side. In the backside of the tower, build a new tank farm that ends up replacing the old tank farm and using a new, bigger tank farm closer to the sign over on that area that would supply both of them. Some of the thought was, well, they just upgraded the tank farm. We already know that it looks like parts of that tank farm are coming down soon here. And in my opinion, if it's built out of concrete or a movable tank, nothing is permanent at SpaceX other than towers and OLMs. So that would then guard the tank farm from using the tower as a deflector, and it would then clear out the way that way, and you would not be flying over the old tank farm because it wouldn't be there. I thought it was interesting. I'm not sure if I'm on board with it, but I just wouldn't put it past SpaceX for doing something like that.
So you're saying, clear this area out and then move the tank farm over here?
Move or rebuild, or with bigger tanks, something on that area. Yep, and then a tower and an OLM to the right, where around where B is. That would, again, the tower would be on the opposite, in between the OLM and the tank farm, to block the, give it more protection, because I think they're realizing that there's not enough protection for that tank farm right now. So just completely removing the old one and moving the tanks over, or bigger tanks.
Yeah.
It was talked about. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's just, I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was worth bringing up just to.
Dude, that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work to do something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so one thing that we have to consider is that they have stated that when they build this second tower, they will do so without disrupting operations to the first tower. So doing something like that, moving a whole tank farm, that would mean duplicating it, then removing these tanks. And then they wouldn't really have a use for them after that because they have a new one. So that would be kind of weird. I don't know. I disagree with that theory. I think it's more likely that this would remain here. And I mean, you could even, I hate to say it, but I have a feeling that Starhopper are going to have to move. But the other secondary tank farm could just line this back wall, possibly. But it does make it a little bit weird the way that this entrance is situated, like how that would work. Yeah, one of the big things that obviously people have mentioned is flying over. I don't think you would be flying over the tank farm. You'd be flying over the second launch tower. I don't know if that's a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you do have a 900-foot long flame. They do a little bit of a pad avoidance maneuver. I would imagine that by the time this tower is completed, that pad avoidance maneuver may be done away with. And they'll launch straight up and then do their dogleg once they reach a certain altitude. But either way, if you are flying over this tower, once you clear the pad, if you fall back, if it falls back, it doesn't really matter. None of this matters. If a fully loaded booster and ship falls back to the pad, all of this is destroyed. All of it. It doesn't matter where the pad is located. All of this is destroyed. That's going to be a massive explosion. So that, in my opinion, that doesn't really matter. As far as actually falling back on the other tower, once you reach a certain altitude, even if you lose a certain amount of engines, that cancels your that brings you down to a below 1 to your thrust to weight ratio, and it starts falling down. You still ideally would have enough engines running where you can gimbal and tilt it over into the ocean. So I would imagine that they would still be able to get away from this tower if needed be, to fall down into the ocean instead of on the tower itself. But like I said, no matter where it lands, it's going to cause massive amounts of damage. But I don't expect that we will ever see that kind of failure. The question at that point becomes like landing. So you're landing. I do think you will be coming over the other tower to some degree, because when it's coming back in, it should be over the ocean, and then one of the final maneuvers is to turn this direction, which is kind of what Falcon 9 does at Vandenberg, I believe. Is it is aimed towards the ocean, and then it ends up turning down towards the launch site once it it's like I don't know how to explain it. Like once it's confirmed that all the systems are running as expected, then it makes a decision to divert towards the landing site. So I think something similar like that would kind of happen over here. And you're not necessarily coming in over this tower. You will already be over it before you start to land down here. But I don't know. I think that's, just working with what we have here, it makes sense that it's going to have to be in this area. I personally would much rather see it over here. Like, it'd be awesome for the launch site to get expanded out like that. But if they are going to do that, then removing these suborbital pads doesn't really make sense. So right now, I think what they're kind of showing us is that, this is their plan. And even if, let's say, removing this, removing pad A was for the purpose of, like I said, possibly building an air separation plant, I think they want, like, the static firing directly into that would be a problem to some degree, I think. So I just feel like all the signs that we're seeing right now kind of show that a second pad should be over in this area, which I'm excited for, because that would be kind of cool when you're driving towards the beach. Having another launch tower right here, closer to the road, will be cooler than if it was back there. But yeah, I'm kind of like looking at the chat a little bit to just get a gauge of what everybody thinks about that location. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, that just makes sense right now. But I think the signs will become much clearer very fast. And the first thing that we'll need before they can really start this work is for the test stand at Massie's to be completed. Or it may not necessarily need to be completed, but if they can bust out the static fires for ship 28, 29, possibly 30, then they can start this, because they'll no longer have to be worried about getting those ships ready for launch. And theoretically, by the time they launch the next three integrated flight tests, that other test stand should be probably finished, I would have to imagine. Cool. Well, do you guys have any more comments on that, or should I move on?
No, I'm good.
Nope, I'm good.
Nope.
All right. Well,
Brain Man asks, why are some of the letters from the gateway to Mars yellow in that picture?
that's a great question. I was wondering the same thing, and I don't know. I wonder if I don't know if they look like that from the ground. I imagine they don't. Yeah, I'm not really sure. They could just be dirty.
I was thinking maybe it was a frequency phase change during the camera shutter rate type of thing.
Well, it still looks like it from here, so yeah.
It's like, yeah, I think I've seen ground photos where it looks that way too. And when they're lit up at night, you don't notice it, but during the day, I don't know what's going on. It does kind of seem to be in like set to 2.
Yeah. I wonder if it's just these aren't quite as bright as the other ones, and that's what makes it look like that. I really like the way this reflects off of the water from this angle. Pretty cool. Yeah, well, so the next thing that we haven't talked about, well, I guess there's a little bit more. So the orbital tank farm, they've finally started getting most of the subcooler work finished. So all of this stuff transitioning from the vertical tanks to the horizontal is basically being done in phases. And as of right now, it appears that most of these tanks will remain for at least until after IFT3. And on that note, we've been kind of keeping an eye. We thought that so this storage shed that was up in this area, I think it was also part of their like security. I think they had their security office down here plus the storage over there. We saw them start to remove this and initially thought that they were preparing to extend this wall all the way down. But as of yesterday, we've kind of figured out what the real reason for removing that is, which is actually kind of funny. It seems like they wanted to do this so that they could bring a crane in this area and not have to move it over the highway. So I do have one clip that Vix posted last night, and shout out to Vix for always catching pretty much all this stuff and posting it. I usually am also watching, but I don't take the time to always post some of this stuff, but Vix is usually on top of it. So here's her post from the other day showing the LR 11,000 moving over to the front of the tank farm. So they basically laid down a bunch of road base so that they could protect the ground here. And now that crane is basically sitting outside of, like just to the left. I think it's like, hold on one second. Yeah, it's pretty much sitting like right here currently. I do think that they will move it forward even more. And it seems like their goal is to reach this. So as you guys can tell, especially from this angle, I think this tank is on its last straw. Like they did their best to like reinforce it, but that didn't really work. Like the pressure wave from booster 9 was enough to make that dent even worse than it was before, in my opinion. The other tanks seem to have done pretty well, but those are also, well, except for the water tank, they're insulated. I'm actually surprised that the original water tank hasn't been damaged the way that this one has. But yeah, this is probably reached a point where it's structurally unstable and not necessarily a good idea to allow it to remain there for the next launch. So what we can guess so far, the only reason that it makes sense for this crane to be here, I mean, one possibility would be to lift in the remaining tank that needs to come in here, but they should be able to drive that tank in there on the SPMTs, considering that the wall hasn't exceeded that open space yet. So I don't think that's what the crane's there for. It makes a little bit more sense that they're going to remove this cryo shell. The question after that is, do they just leave it like that? Like, do they leave the tank underneath exposed? That's going to be interesting to see. The other option that I've seen some people suggest would be to remove this one and scrap it and then move this tank in that position. But as you can see, this tank is kind of crushed as well too. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a good option. The other problem with that is that these tanks have ports on the bottom of them, and maybe I can like bring one up really quick and show you guys. Oscar the Grouch from my Discord server was posting some of these throwback videos last night. Let's see if I can find it. Showing some of these tanks as they were being installed, and then we can kind of get an idea of like what's on the bottom of them, because it's kind of important. Let's see here. Searching through trying to find this really quick, so bear with me for just a minute. This may be a good one right here. Yeah. Cool. So this right here, and see if I can maybe full screen this. Some throwback footage from Lab Padre showing the first, or one of the cryo shells that was being lifted. And basically you can see these ports on the side of it. These ports made it so that all of these tank shells were unique. None of or some of them are the same, but they're as far as like you can't really just put this one in place of the other one because the ports are flipped in different locations. So with each of these water tanks, you have a supply and a return. So you can't necessarily just move this one over the other one without redoing all of the pipework to the water tanks. So, I mean, theoretically, and I posted this on X last night, kind of just explaining why this is important. Theoretically, they could just stop using this water tank, remove that water tank as well, and then just only use the first one. But the reason why this water tank is actually important is because inside of this building, there's, well, for one, you have all the valves that direct your fuel from either the launch tower or the launch mount. But also on the right side of the building, just behind these vaporizers, are a bunch of heat exchangers inside the building, and those use water from these tanks to run through the heat exchanger, and then they exchange heat with either, I'm not really 100% sure on this, but I think it may just be liquid nitrogen, or it could be liquid oxygen for the LOX tanks and methane for the methane tanks. But either way, they're vaporizing the cryogenic liquid, turning it into gas, and sending it back to these tanks. And same thing for the methane tanks. And that is like very similar to the autogenous pressurization on the booster and ship, where you have to replace the fluid that comes out with gas in order to stop the tank from, prevent the tank from collapsing. So these are like very important for this tank farm system. That's why when this water tank was damaged, they had to use these as water tanks because they couldn't just not have water. And it wasn't because they needed the water for the Firex system. Like, this is way far greater amount of water than what they will ever use in that Firex system. But the primary purpose is to use this water for that heat exchanger. And so given that you're exchanging heat with cryogenic liquid, the water is going to get very cold. And so you have to have a lot of it, because if you only used a little bit amount of water, the water is going to get progressively colder, possibly even freeze at some point. So the more water you have, the better, as far as like making this system work as efficient as possible. Like, you don't want it to start slowly vaporizing less cryogenic material because, you know, the water's getting cold. So yeah, these have to be in use, and I think they actually, for the volume, do need both of them. So that's going to be weird. It's going to be interesting to see if they run this off of just one water tank, or if they remove the shell and continue to use this tank unprotected. I mean, like I said, with the additional heat exchangers that are down here, they're going to be pumping liquid oxygen and methane faster, which means this system has to be operating faster as well too. So yeah, there's less time for the water in here to like warm back up. It's going to be doing that heat exchanger process twice as fast as it was before. Another question, I guess, was when they remove all of this stuff, what are they going to replace that system with? And I think we may see a massive amount of vaporizers. They're going to have to install those somewhere, possibly in this location where the tanks currently are, like a huge group of vaporizers in order to replace this system, because this is part of the reason why they built it this way, is because it's extremely efficient the way they did it. You know, maximizing the space by using this kind of system instead of using vaporizers. I mean, the equivalent of it, or the alternative to this, can be seen at Massie's. Over here. So this is the alternative to the heat exchanger system that they're using at the launch site. So this has to be like 2 to 3 times bigger, if not even greater, at the launch site in order to do the same thing. So yeah, it's a very important process, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do for this, because it's clearly going to happen before the next launch. at least removing this first tank shell, not the tank, but at least the shell. Sorry, that was a long explanation, but I feel like it's good information to know. So yeah, moving on. There's just a few more things, I guess. As I mentioned, they've finished up the most of the pipe work. I think they haven't gotten the fourth kettle boiler for the methane hooked up yet. We were able to see that in the ground images, which I'll grab. Scroll over to the launch site. This is the liquid oxygen side, methane side. So yeah, they have, man, these look rough. 3 out of the 4 connected, so they still got to do the other one, but it looks like they may hold off on that because they haven't started it yet. So they may just run 3 methane pumps instead of 4. But on the lock side, they have finished all their work over here. And as of this morning, they've started to show signs that they're finished with that work. And Mauricio, with his on-site live stream cameras, has some good footage for us. So I will show that really quick. This is from his camera. I'm going to turn the volume down first. So they've, as of this morning, been purging out this system. So you can see these are all frosty. I think yesterday they did their initial blowout, which is, a lot of people thought it was the purge, but that's not. It's just the initial blowout, and then actually purging the entire system with nitrogen is what they're using to actually clean everything out. So this is a good sign. This means that they're pretty much done with all that work and theoretically ready to resume testing on the launch mount. The other thing that they had to finish before doing that, though, is let me grab the right tab here, was replace the flex hoses on the back of the launch mount, which they did that this week or yesterday. So the liquid methane hose right here, this is the liquid oxygen one being installed, and then this is the oxygen pre-press line back there. So they got all of those connected, and now all they need to do is put the hood back on, and they theoretically are ready to start doing engine testing again. I guess the main question is whether or not all of the for the Raptor chill system. So let me just scroll to another image. The Raptor chill system, which goes into this manifold right here. I'm pretty sure all of those pipes were probably damaged. So I think that's what they're doing down here right now, is replacing all of those pipes. So that is the remaining question on what's left to be done before they can actually start testing on the launch mount again.
Zach, are those the tearaway pipes that we see?
Yeah, they're flex hoses, and the flex hoses rip free, but I'm assuming that they don't rip free without also causing damage to the pipes. And the pipes are up within the inner ring, so they're directly exposed to the cutting torch from the booster. So I imagine they get pretty damaged. So I'm pretty positive they have to replace them every time. So that's 20 or 33 pipes that have to be replaced. I'm assuming they've probably been working on that for a while now. But we don't know what their current status is on that. And this platform's still up there, so it's kind of a sign that they're still working on it. Yeah, I think that's basically the last thing they need to do. They did finish fixing the ship QD. Got a better image of that. So there was a piston that was broken on this during the last launch. It's basically the opposite of this one right here, I think, on the other side. So that was damaged, and they fixed that this week. So I think this is good to go again. And then the last thing that they're doing over here, they got scaffolding up on this whole thing. So I think Jake said they were repainting all of this, make it look nice again. So yeah, other than that, I think they're pretty much very close to being ready to start doing booster testing again. And that was a lot of things to get through. I think I covered every topic that we needed to address today. I may have missed some stuff. Do you guys have any other things to add that I may have skipped over?
I saw they started painting the legs too, and when they paint the legs, that normally means fire's coming soon to rip that paint right off. So that's another good sign.
Did they? I know that they're doing some work. So some of these welds cracked on the actual, I guess you call them flame diverters. Some of the welds were cracked, so I think they're still shaving those down and re-welding them. I don't know. Did they
If you
actually
go on the
release
left leg, up on the left leg, I believe we could see paint, a liner painting right there.
right here?
Somebody thought they were painting over there, but maybe that was a closer look, maybe not. But
Yeah,
it looked like
does
they
look
started.
like it. Yeah, these look like he's painting.
Yeah. Yep.
Just taking a little break. Yeah, so I guess they have started, but down here they still got to finish all this, and then they'll repaint that as well too. But I mean, theoretically, they can at least start spin prime testing while they're doing. Oh no, they won't do that. They won't start testing it all until everything is out of the way here, I think. But yeah, they're getting very, very close. Just not quite ready yet.
Yeah, and on the topic of spin prime testing, I don't think we explicitly mentioned that Ship 28 was lifted onto test pad B. And then today, actually during the show, it completed its first spin prime. So hopefully a static fire up soon.
Yeah, do we know when the next closure is?
Monday, I believe.
Yeah, the 18th.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I guess we should probably expect then to see that static fire on Monday, and then theoretically ship testing will be completed. They also moved the transport stand for the ship back to the build site, so that's interesting. It almost suggests that it's going to stay out here for a while. So that's interesting because we were kind of expecting maybe some additional work to the tiles to happen, but theoretically that can also happen out here. So
Well, my question was, did Ship 25's transport stand ever leave the pad?
only
it
when it
did.
was fully stacked, I think.
I'm pretty sure it rolled out last night.
No. He means 25, like when they were doing testing on 25, if the transport stand ever left. I don't think
Oh,
it did.
sorry. Yeah, my bad.
No, I think
Losing track of ships.
No, I think Jax is actually asking if it ever left. They left 25 stand next to pad A.
Yeah. So that can just if 25 stand is still there, that can take 28 from now on.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean okay,
Yeah.
if it's still there currently.
Yeah.
It was there the last overhead flyover.
Is it? Hold on, let me go ahead and. Are there two stands here? Oh wait, this is before. Okay, so yeah, it is just chilling there right now. And there's a booster transport stand here too, which is interesting. Yeah, so I guess they could just use this instead. That makes sense.
And I think it should be mentioned. You mentioned if they get this static fire done on Monday, that would be the ship's testing campaign finished exactly 1 month after the flight, which is a much better timeline than they had for Flight 1. I think it was at least 2 months until Ship 25 had done its 6-engine static fire. So they're moving at a good pace.
Yeah.
Are we able to tell how many engine spin prime? Was it all of them? I didn't see it. I've been in here, so I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, it sure looked like all of them, I think.
It looked like all of them. It's windy there today, so it looked kind of weird because of the way the wind was blowing.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we maybe need to mention, or do we have any questions, Astro Joe, or touch on the final donations?
Indeed, yeah. I'd just like to thank everybody for pushing us $1,240 over our goal, including Drew Nar with another Canadian $5. Brian Green with back-to-back 20 and 50, totaling $70. Thanks to again, Brian Green. Just Martin with 20 pounds. PN What with another 20. And a couple of anonymous 20s. Brian Green with another $12. Thank you so much for all of your generous support. Another anonymous with $20. That is absolutely amazing. And yet another anonymous just coming with another 20, pushing us well over our goal. Thank you. We're gonna increase that next year for the kids. Man, the support is just amazing from you guys. Thank you so much. Chris E. did have a question from earlier in the show. Has anyone seen any fuel transfer additions to Starship yet?
Well, first of all, I think people that we may need to like re-explain what fuel transfer is because it's not what people think it is. Jax, do you want to explain that? Still with us,
Sure.
Jax?
Yeah, I think it's there's a few ways they could go about doing the propellant transfer stuff, and ultimately they're going to need a receiving end and a transfer end of the quick disconnect once they eventually do a docking. For these initial tests with seemingly ship 28, they're going to want to do an internal thing between the liquid oxygen header and the liquid oxygen main tank. But once they actually go to dock some ships, they're going to need a different kind of interface. While we haven't seen that yet, I theorize we're going to see something that looks like on the depot ship. I think we're going to see like a male end QD. I think the depot is going to have two QDs. It's going to have the one it launches with, and then it'll have its transfer QD. And what that would allow is it would mean that all of the other ships wouldn't need any specialized hardware at all, potentially. If they're going to do the propellant transfer completely through inertially somehow, or with little thrusters, maybe through some kind of pressure differential, maybe they don't need specialized hardware on the normal ships at all. It would just be the one depot that has to have something special. I don't know what you all think. It'd be an interesting way to keep the mass low for the most part.
I don't know. I haven't given it a ton of thought yet.
That's pretty much the same conclusion I came to. I think it simplifies everything. It just adds less parts, less complexity, and you only have to change the one variant. So I think that makes a lot of sense, but I'm still not sure how they're going to actually transfer the fuel, like get it to leave one ship and go to the other with,
Yeah.
especially if they don't vent. Like if they do the microgravity thing, it makes sense. But in one of the NASA documents, they mentioned ventless transfer, and I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, I think the big thing overall to note is that it's not a ship-to-ship transfer that they're demonstrating, because obviously they're only launching one ship. So as far as like seeing additional hardware related to that, I don't necessarily think we should expect to see anything unless it involved like adding COPVs or something onto the side of the ship, which they haven't done. Awesome. Well, any other questions, Astro Joe?
Yeah, awesome. I think that covers it. And then I wanted to thank Dave Avery for another $50 donation for St. Jude. That is awesome. And back when we were talking about a second tower, Michelle Nichols asks, where would the second Deluge be?
That's a good question. So, not really sure. I mean, it's yet another thing that they need to fit into this space. Think people have suggested like possibly using the first one for both towers, but that in its current state is not necessarily possible. So the way this is designed to be used without any valves in the actual water side of the system. So they would need to install valves to shut in the first launch mount and then also cut into those pipes and redirect them all the way over to the second launch mount, wherever that is. So yeah, that's going to be a big question. But as far as layout of the possible launch tower, it's really difficult to say until we start seeing them, start actually breaking ground on that. Any other questions?
That's all I got today, good sir.
Awesome. Well, we did go about an hour over, so again, hopefully you all appreciate the extra time. There was a ton to cover today, and I'm sure there'll be a ton to cover next week as well. I won't be here next week or the week after, but I'm sure if Stephanie's leading the show, it'll be a great show as well. So, yeah, I guess for me, I will go ahead and sign off. Also wanted to thank Nate, Jax, Mauser, and Todd, and also Astro Joe for your help today on the stream, and also to Irma for taking all of the photos this week, and also another shout out to Jared Isaacman for all of his hard work with the St. Jude, and also for matching the donations that you guys made today, and also shout out to the audience as well for getting us over our goal and exceeding it. So you guys are awesome. And yeah, with that, I'll see you all next week and pass it off to whoever wants to take it next.
I guess that will be me. Yeah, a lot of the same sentiments. It was another great show. I appreciate you having me on. Huge shout out to all the generous people out there that donated. That is a lot of money going to a great cause. So thank you. And until next time, I appreciate you having me on, and we'll see you around.
I guess I'll go next. Yeah, again, thank you guys all for being here. Thank you for your donations. We all appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys having me here today. Always fun. I like to get my ideas out and help where I can. Yeah, thanks again for everything, everybody. I'll pass it on.
Yeah, I'll go next. Thank you all so much for having me. I know I'm not here as much lately, but I think this was a pretty special one to come back for. An amazing cause, as you guys already said, $6,300 US. That's pretty damn impressive. I think that's over double of what last year's goal was. Yeah, thank you all so much again for having me. I'll pass it on, and I hope to see you all later.
Thanks, Jax. Nate did say that he had to bounce since we ran a little bit late, so tell everyone bye for me. Great stream, so amazing to raise so much money for St. Jude's Children's Cancer Research. So we love you too, Nate. Thanks, buddy. So yeah, Zach, Jax, Mouser, Nate, Todd, thank you all for a great stream. Jeff, thanks for turning the knobs and pushing the buttons, engineering a great stream. And thank you, Irma and RGV team for putting this all together. This has been an amazing show, and thanks Valerie Jones for a last-minute $10 donation to bring us to $6,300. That is just amazing. And with that, I think we'll call it a show. So, most engines cut off. Hot stage confirmed. Love you, bye.